Welcome in here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant, and we want to start the show with a bit of breaking news. So all week, and even leading up to this week, we have told you about Border Patrol presence and have given you the latest updates when it comes to Border Patrol here in Charlotte and in other parts of North Carolina. So we just got some news from the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office that I want to share with you. So this is a statement. I want to read the statement from the Sheriff's Office. So the headline reads, Sheriff McFadden advised, quote, Charlotte's Web, which is an operation conducted by Border Patrol, has concluded. ICE remains operational in Mecklenburg County. So that statement reads, federal officials have confirmed with Mecklenburg County Sheriff Gary McFadden that the U.S. Customs and Border Protection operation Charlotte's Web has officially concluded. As a result, there will be no CBP operations in Charlotte on Thursday. It is important to clarify that while the Charlotte's Web operation has ended, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, will continue to operate in Mecklenburg County as they always have. There's an ICE, I just want to point out, there is an ICE office here in Charlotte. So ICE maintains full authority to detain, apprehend, and take into custody any undocumented immigrant in accordance with federal law. As a reminder, the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office will not engage in any enforcement actions regarding immigration with ICE. We will continue to follow the law as it relates to House Bill 318 and release those in our custody to ICE within a 48-hour time period. I just want to read this last bit from Sheriff McFadden. He says, quote, we will continue to build relationships, mend bridges, and listen to the voices of everyone in our community. As we move forward, I want the city of Charlotte to know I will keep fighting for clarity, accountability, and trust, and I will continue to protect this city and every single one of the citizens. Again, I just want to, in case you're just tuning in, Sheriff McFadden, Mecklenburg County Sheriff, is saying that the Border Patrol operation, Charlotte's Web, has concluded as of today. Now, in just the last couple of minutes, we just got a post on X from Mayor Vi. She just posted this. This is her statement right here. You see it on your screen. It reads, it appears that U.S. Border Patrol has ceased its operations in Charlotte. I'm relieved for our community and the residents, businesses, and all those who were targeted and impacted by this intrusion. As we move forward, it is essential that we come together, not as separate groups divided by recent events, but as one Charlotte community. Our strength has always come from our ability to support one another, especially in challenging times. I am calling on all members of our community to join in this effort. Let us stand together, listen to one another, and recommit ourselves to the values of dignity, compassion, and unity that define our city. Charlotte is strongest when Charlotte stands as one. Again, this is a statement that, as you see there from the timestamp, posted just minutes ago from Mayor Vi on what we are hearing and what Mayor Vi is saying and what the Sheriff's Office is saying, the conclusion of Border Patrol operations here in Charlotte. So we will continue to follow these developments and continue to give you up-to-date details as we learn them. So as Border Patrol has been here in the Charlotte area, we've seen protests. We've seen people gathering, making their voices heard. And I want to point out here on Live Impact News, we have been a platform for all voices in this matter. But again, we have seen protests, and those protests in the evening, especially like in East Charlotte. But we also had a protest at the federal courthouse. That's where we have Julie Kay. She's there. She was at that protest from this morning. So Julie, catch us up. Talk about what took place there.
Yeah, as you mentioned, this is one of many protests we've seen across the county, really, as Border Patrol has continued their operations here, ending today. But that does not stop the wake of people who were impacted by the time that they were here. That includes Miguel Angel Garcia Martinez, who had a court hearing today. He was arrested on Sunday. Many of you may have seen that video of the arrest where there's kind of a crash happening. He was in a big white van, and federal officials say that he rammed into their their vehicles to stop their operations from continuing up in the University City area. But today we heard from not just protesters, but his family saying that's not true. He was just documenting what happened here. So these are false felony charges, they say, that he's facing, 3 of them. So we're waiting to get updates from what happened in that court hearing today, but you can still see people kind of milling about. That's actually his family over there standing by the pillars, and some of the protesters here waiting on the steps. Many of them are still either inside showing support or have left in the last couple minutes or so. This began around 11:30, and so it's been ongoing for the last hour and a couple minutes or so. But yeah, really just some stark words that we're hearing, a stark picture being painted of, yes, Border Patrol is leaving, but there's still a lot of people that have pending litigation, people who are still detained and their family is having a hard time getting a hold of them. So just because Border Patrol is leaving does not mean that, there's still going to be residual impacts for a lot of these families, Nick.
Yeah, Julie, as you mentioned, Border Patrol is leaving, but there's still impact for a lot of folks here in the Charlotte area. Julie, we will check in with you at 4 and 5. That's where you can catch our story tonight and the latest developments on that story. Julie, thank you for your time. All right, so we want to head to break. Again, before we head to break, I want to update you guys, catch you guys up in case you missed it. I said this earlier in the show. According to the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office, and I'm pulling up the statement as my team's feed keeps updating, so it keeps shifting around a bit. But Sheriff McFadden, Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office, has said and has confirmed, according to them, that U.S. Customs and Border Protection Operation Charlotte's Web has concluded. As a result, there will be no CBP operations in Charlotte on Thursday, November 20th, 2025, which is today. All right, so we'll have more on this, of course, here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. But first, we want to take a break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. So happening live right now, former Vice President Dick Cheney, who died on November 3rd at the age of 84, is being remembered at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. It is happening right now, and we have brought some of that to you here on Live Impact News. We've heard from Cheney's daughter, Representative Liz Cheney, but we also heard from former President George W. Bush. He gave a eulogy, and he honored the vice president and said, quote, "a gentleman by nature and a true man of the West." in case you missed it, let's take you back. Just moments ago, again, we heard from former President George W. Bush. Let's take a listen in.
Lynn, Liz, and Mary, and all the Cheney family, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate this chance to say a few words about a man I was proud to call my vice president and my friend. Though not a happy assignment, I do consider it an easy one because there was so much to like and admire about Dick Cheney. Dick was a stoical man, and I doubt he left his life with any complaints about the time given to him or its end. He was also a grateful man, grateful above all for 3 loyal, loving women who shared in his journey. As I quickly discovered in 2000, when you choose one Cheney, you get 4. His busy and purposeful life was an adventure they experienced together. In a family so close, you dread the day when the circle is broken. Lynn and the girls, Heather, Phil, and all the grandchildren, he sure loved you all, and he was proud of his family. I hope it helps to know that many people in this country share your sense of loss, and we're here today as your friends. 25 years ago, I had a big choice to make, a big job to fill. I want to know all my options, so I enlisted the help of a distinguished former White House Chief of Staff and Secretary of Defense to lead my search for running mate. Dick Cheney and I went through the files name by name. We talked over the various qualities I was looking for in a vice president: preparedness, mature judgment, rectitude, and loyalty. Above all, I wanted someone with the ability to step into the presidency without getting distracted by the ambition to seek it. After weeks of these meetings, I began to have a thought I could not shake. I realized the best choice for the vice president was the man sitting right in front of me, and I told him that. At such a moment, most in this position would have jumped at the chance, but Dick stayed detached, and he analyzed it. Before I made my decision, he insisted on giving me a complete rundown of all the reasons I should not choose him. He also heard one of my top advisors was against the choice, so Dick invited him to make the case. As he did so, he sat there unfazed and expressionless. In the end, I trusted my judgment. I remember my dad's words when I told him what I was planning. He said, "Son, you couldn't pick a better man." The way this all unfolded followed a pattern in Dick Cheney's life. Summing up his career a few years ago, he said, "A few breaks came my way, and one job always led to another, and in a life that's taken me far to more places than I ever expected." That was Dick's typically understated version of events, but there's a little more to the story. His abilities were self-evident without need of calculation or self-promotion. His talent and restraint exceeded his ego. Even before the Cheney name reached the national stage, people always saw something in the man, solid, reliable, and rare. One of the first to really notice was Lynn Vincent. She can recall a time in their college years when Dick, as he freely admitted, lacked direction and needed some straightening out. I think we had that in common. That was Lynn's kind of project, and it did not take her long. He said many times that his life would have turned out a whole lot different if he had never met her. It may explain how in just over a decade, a guy can go from laying transmission lines outside Cheyenne to serving as chief of staff of the President of the United States. In Dick's telling, those years working for Gerald Ford were special and formative. He cherished the association, and the high regard went both ways. In his memoir, President Ford described Dick's steadiness, his low-key style, and his absolute loyalty. I know exactly what he meant. These are not traits easy to come by in Washington. Being calm, reticent, undramatic, and untrustworthy are not everyone's formula for success in politics. But they were the Cheney way, and they worked. I'm reminded of a renowned senator who once gave this advice to a junior colleague. Perhaps he said you could occasionally allow yourself the luxury of an unexpressed thought. Dick Cheney was like that, sparing and measured with words. In a profession that attracts talkers, he was a thinker and a listener. And when he did speak up, conveying thoughts in that even tone of voice, that orderly, unexcitable manner, you knew you were getting the best of a highly disciplined mind. No colleague, no legislator, no foreign leader who ever met Dick Cheney ever doubted that they were dealing with a serious man. Of course, not every political counselor is cut out to be a political candidate. But Dick Cheney put himself to the test and never lost an election. In fact, it happens that he and I both ran for Congress in 1978. And let me just say the Republican wave didn't reach West Texas that year. He told me a few times what it's like to campaign in Wyoming. Lots of small gatherings and long drives. It's easy to imagine the impression that young Dick Cheney made when he was asking for the vote. I wish more Americans got to know Dick Cheney the way the folks in Casper, Cody, and Laramie got to know him. Smart and polished, without airs. Courteous and approachable, seeing everyone as an equal, a gentleman by nature, and a true man of the West. Dick was funny and easygoing in a style that his public image never caught up with. Though we can all agree he wasn't your standard issue politician. If any voters came hoping for a kind word and a hug, they'd have to settle for the kind word. But you can't question the appeal of the only person from America's Mountain West ever elected to national office. On that score, history should record that I chose my vice president not once, but twice. In 2004, he offered to step aside in case I wanted to replace him. I thought about it for a while, but after 4 years of seeing how he treated people, how he carried responsibility, how he handled pressure and took the hits, I arrived back at the conclusion that they do not come any better than Dick Cheney. Colleagues from every chapter of his career will tell you that he lifted the standards of those around him just by being who he was, so focused and so capable. In our years in office together, on the quiet days and on the hardest ones, he was everything a president should expect in his second in command. In moments of testing, Dick Cheney was the model of concentration, alertness, and composure. His memoir was titled My Time. His time produced an old breed of public servant, defined by their substance and character. This was a vice president totally devoted to protecting the United States and its interests. There was never any agenda or angle beyond that. You did not know Dick Cheney unless you understood his greatest concerns and ambitions were for his country. Across 40 years, his service was consistent, faithful, and noble. All in all, not a bad showing for a career and a life, especially when you consider his sheer physical endurance. As Dr. Rayner pointed out, he became an authority on cardiovascular disease, and a marvel at what resourceful doctors and one very determined patient can accomplish. Dick had faced down fears and hardships, but he really didn't speak about them. The reward was more of a life than he ever expected, including 7 grandchildren to complete the picture. One of them, Richard, even asked his grandfather to attend kindergarten class for a show and tell. I wish I'd have been there. As a matter of fact, the teacher told Dick that was the most exciting show and tell since the morning a little girl brought her cow to class. That might have been among Dick's last moments in the spotlight. In his final years, he was content to go his way. At a rare public appearance in 2022, he offered a kind of parting reflection. He said, when you can look back on a lifetime in politics and government, and what you value most are the friendships, then I guess you've done all right. A lot of us know that feeling as we say an affectionate farewell to the 46th Vice President of the United States. It's something to be cherished when a man of his caliber has been your colleague and friend. This son of Wyoming, son of Marjorie and Richard Cheney of Casper, went far in this world and in our own lives left a very fine mark. We are grateful for his good life, we honor his service, and we pray that somewhere up the trail we will meet him again.
All right, so that was the eulogy from former President George W. Bush at former Vice President, his former Vice President Dick Cheney's funeral, who passed away at the age of 84 on November 3rd. And that funeral is still happening right now at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. We'll get back to that in just a moment, but we want to take a pause. We want to take a break, a 2-minute break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We want to go back now. Again, it's happening live. Former Vice President Dick Cheney, who died at the age of 84 on November 3rd, is being remembered today in Washington, D.C. So it's happening live, but we heard from his daughter, Representative Liz Cheney. She eulogized her father and saying, quote, that bonds of party must always yield to the single bond we share as Americans. That was just part of what she said during her eulogy, but we want to take you now, in case you missed it, to her full eulogy. This is Representative Liz Cheney.
Following your kids to talk about your dad is not good scheduling. But distinguished guests, presidents and vice presidents, dear friends, my mom and Mary and I and our families, thank you for being here to honor the good and great man we loved so much. A few years ago, reflecting back on nearly 40 years in public service, Dick Cheney said this: "The path I had traveled was partly due to the circumstance of my birth. Not that I had been born into a powerful or privileged family, I wasn't. But I was born an American, a blessing surely among life's greatest." My dad thought deeply about what this blessing meant, about the duties it imposed. Shortly after he became Secretary of Defense in 1989, he described departing from the Pentagon. "As my helicopter lifted off the Pentagon helipad, I could look across the river to the great monuments of Washington, Jefferson, and Lincoln, to the White House and the Capitol building, where all the great decisions that have shaped 200 years of American history were made. And I could look directly out on Arlington National Cemetery and remember what a terrible price thousands of brave Americans have paid so that all of us could enjoy the blessings of liberty." My dad's devotion to America was deep and substantive. He spent his life studying the history of our great republic. He knew you couldn't truly appreciate what it means to live in freedom if you didn't understand the sacrifices of the generations who came before. And he made sure that his children and grandchildren understood this too. When Mary and I were little, my dad would load up our station wagon on the weekends to take us to visit Civil War battlefields. With the back seat down and no need for seatbelts in those days, we would stretch out, eating Krispy Kreme donuts for breakfast, while my dad drove us to places like Gettysburg, Antietam, Chancellorsville, and Manassas. To be clear, even with the donuts, Mary and I were not enthusiastic participants in these outings. As you might imagine, Dick Cheney read every word of every sign at every battlefield, museum, and national park he ever visited. When you're 5 or 6 years old, this is not your idea of a good time. Mary and I usually moaned and groaned about how long he was taking, and Dick Cheney ignored us. And he just kept reading the signs. He didn't lecture us or demand that we read anything, but we pretty quickly realized no one was going anywhere until he got done. And so we figured we might as well start reading the signs too. And what an education we got. That was the thing about Dick Cheney. He wouldn't force his opinion on you or demand you do things his way. He might not share his opinion at all if you didn't ask. In fact, he was known to go long stretches of time without saying a single word. But if you watched closely, if you asked questions, if you listened when he did speak, you had the experience of seeing the world opening up in front of you, of looking at things in new ways, of benefiting from his clarity of thought, his ability to crystallize what was important and what wasn't. And he was always surprising. Many know the story of his time at Yale. If my dad heard you say he flunked out, he would correct you. No, I was asked to leave. Twice. He took a break from school and he spent several years building power line across the West. I had heard this part of the story my whole life, but it wasn't until I worked with him on his memoirs that I learned how he spent his evenings. At the end of long days, he'd unroll his sleeping bag by a campfire or on a cot in the cook tent, and by the light of his Coleman lantern, he read Winston Churchill's 6-volume history of World War II. By the fall of 1963, Dick Cheney was convinced, some would say threatened, by my mother to return to school. He'd been at the University of Wyoming just a few weeks when he climbed to a seat up near the rafters of the packed field house to hear President John F. Kennedy urge the students to dedicate their lives to the service of our nation. I think this is the moment my dad decided what direction his life should take. Though he was inspired to service by President Kennedy, Dick Cheney became a Republican. But he knew that bonds of party must always yield to the single bond we share as Americans. For him, a choice between defense of the Constitution and defense of your political party was no choice at all. When he was vice president, he wrote in this letter to all of his grandchildren, "As you grow, you will come to understand the sacrifices that each generation makes to preserve freedom and democracy for future generations. And you will assume the important responsibilities of citizens in our society. I ask of you as my grandchildren what I asked of my daughters, that you always strive in your lives to do what is right." In the last few years, God gave me one of the greatest blessings of my life, the gift of time with my dad. We spent hours sitting by the fire at his house or mine, watching football and old movies. We went to grandkids' games and matches, and we hit the road again, this time with me in the driver's seat. Now, let me be clear, he did not like my driving. And in his defense, I had wrecked far too many of his cars over the years for him to be happy with this arrangement. But we reached an accommodation of sorts. My dad agreed to let me drive if I agreed to let him choose the music. Johnny Cash, John Denver, and yes, even the Carpenters were the soundtrack of our road trips. We went to places he'd taken us 50 years ago, to Manassas and Antietam and Mount Vernon. My dad in his Stetson, the latest copy of The Economist, that day's newspapers, and a book always tucked into the door pocket. We drove for hours. We talked about life and family, history, and America. Sometimes my dad's yellow lab, Max, would jump in the back seat and come with us. Max, like every dog we ever had, loved my dad the best. To be in my dad's company was safety and love and laughter and kindness. There's a picture taken several years ago of him in his cowboy hat and jeans, in a fleece jacket. He has his arm around one of his young grandsons, who's leaning into his warm embrace. Looking at that picture last week, my mom put it best when she said that's what he was to all of us. He was a giant to the end, a lion of a man who loved and served this great republic. The night before my dad died, the sky above my parents' house filled with clouds in the shape of winged angels. I'd never seen anything like it. It seemed indeed that angels and archangels and all the company of heaven had come to watch over him. As my dad left this earth, his last words were to tell my mother he loved her. And now, all of us who loved him so dearly say to him, "Good night, sweet dad. May flights of angels sing thee to thy rest."
All right, so that was Representative Liz Cheney, the daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney, speaking at that funeral. Again, that funeral is happening live right now, but we wanted to play you back some of those moments from the funeral in case you missed it. We are going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. We want to go back now live to former Vice President Dick Cheney's funeral. It's happening right now at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. They are in the process of carrying his casket out. Let's take a listen into what is being said or what is happening right now there. All right, so you're watching live outside the National Cathedral there in Washington, D.C. The funeral for former Vice President Dick Cheney appears to be wrapping up there. We have been keeping an eye on this funeral, also taking you back to different moments in the funeral. We will continue to keep an eye on that funeral again. That's for Vice President Dick Cheney there in Washington, D.C. We want to come back home now, and we want to get to a story in York County. So we talk about these areas within Charlotte, these pockets that are growing. And one of those areas, Clover, it continues to grow. You see new developments, new housing. And as of late, we've heard the word, or the term, I should say, impact fees. Look, you may be wondering what impact fees are, but again, it's been a point at times of contention for folks there in the Clover area. I want to bring in Walker Lawson, who's following this story. Impact fees, something that's been discussed there. York County leaders have been talking about it. Let's start here. For those who don't know, what are impact fees? What are we talking about?
Yeah, so impact fees are basically what you will pay into the district whenever you want to build a new home. So currently, impact fees are $4,000 in the area. The proposal is to bring the impact fees up to $15,000 and $15,035. That makes sense. So a big ask from the Clover School District.
So where do we stand now with those impact fees?
Yeah, so far it has passed a second reading unanimously. It will now face third reading in December. I have spoken to a council member on York County Council that said he will not be supporting the third reading of this. He feels as if it's not the right way to go about things in the district. He attributed it to a lot of different things, but kind of citing, Clover. He thinks that this causes some kind of question of finances because he said that this area, typically that's going to cost a lot for someone to build a home in this area. And he feels like that's out of touch with what people, make or pay here in this area for homes. So he had proposed maybe $7,000 instead of $15,000, but somehow he said he feels like the county has bent itself backwards to make this $15,000 what the impact fee is going to be. But again, it will have a third reading in December, something he plans to not support, but it was passed unanimously on Monday night to move forward to the third reading.
And Walker, one last question before I let you go. I know you just got there a short time ago, but any sense of how folks there in the community feel about this?
It's split pretty much down the middle. I think you can kind of take away there's mixed reaction. I've gone through Facebook and I've looked everywhere, and it seems to be a split sentiment. Some people think that it's fine. Some people don't want to. I've seen some stuff about people saying, why do I have to pay $15,000 to build a home if I'm not even going to have kids going to school there? Some saying it's needed. Obviously, the district, I'll be talking to them at 2. They've kind of, from what I've looked at, expressed that this obviously needs to happen to move this district forward for more buildings, obviously seeing growth in this county. So you'll kind of hear tonight from the district and from a council member that does not support this project.
Again,
price, I will say.
Yeah, and look, again, a very a story that has a lot of eyes, especially for folks living in those growing communities like Clover. You can catch Walker at 4:30 and 5:30. You don't want to miss his story. Walker, be safe out there, and thank you for your time, man.
Of course, I know you're happy to have me here with you today.
Of course, thank you. Good to see you, man. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. I think it's winter. No, it's not winter. I think it's fall. I don't know what season it is, Carlene. I'm confused.
It's warm right now.
It's like,
I'm loving it.
It was like almost 80 degrees yesterday.
Loved it. Loved every minute of it.
Did you put on your AC?
Greg handles the AC. I just live in it. The thermostat's his domain. I just live in it.
It was tempting. It was tempting.
Yeah.
I felt my energy bill has been quite lovely without the AC.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, we've gone from extremes. We've gone from it's been really, really cold to we're going to touch close to 80 this weekend. I'm a sweatshirt hoodie guy. I love fall, but this North Carolina, sometimes you don't
get fall.
We don't really get fall. We get the nice leaves.
You get some leaves.
We get a touch of
You're
cold
a Carolina
air.
kid as well as I am.
I know,
and that's the thing.
I know.
People love fall. They come here like, I love fall, but South
you have to go to the mountains.
North Carolina fall is different. I'm like, yeah.
You have to go to the mountains to get a true fall.
To get a true fall.
Yeah.
We don't have that right now.
Here in the Piedmont, you're not going to get
that.
True fall. I can count on one hand, and off the top of my head, 2 times where we've had like a true fall.
Like a true fall, yeah.
So, I guess the hoodies in my closet are going to collect dust for now. It's fine. It's fine. I'll take it. It could be worse.
There's going to become a time where you're going to wish 80 degrees this year. Trust me. You're going to wish it.
I don't have to wish because it's already here. Let's check in with the forecast right now.
Well, good Thursday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm, and we have another very nice day today. You can see Dallas out there, generally a good mix of sun and clouds across much of the state of North and even South Carolina. Now, today you're going to notice increasing cloud coverage as we progress more into the afternoon and even into the evening. However, our temperatures, they'll still rise into the lower end of the 70s. Now, it's not going to be quite as warm as yesterday. Yesterday, we broke our daily high record, nearing almost 80 degrees. And then we have some rain showers moving in overnight tonight and into early Friday morning. Scattered rain. Not everyone will see it, but I do think many folks will. Friday's going to be a mainly cloudy day, and it's not going to be rain all throughout your Friday. So if you have any plans, it's mainly early in the morning and then late Friday night. This weekend, not too bad. Comfortable temperatures, small rain chances. Look at this, though. Yesterday, we did break that daily high record. We topped off at 79 degrees, and today 72, still about 10 degrees above where we should be for this time of the year, but definitely not quite as warm as where we were yesterday. Notice throughout the day we started out with beautiful clear sunny skies. Now as we're into the afternoon, a nice mix of sun and clouds, and then by late day you'll have mainly cloudy conditions. Now if you're in the mountains, you're going to get the rain a little sooner rather than later, and you'll have much more cloud coverage move in quicker as well. 64 degrees for your high today in Boone, 60 degrees in Blowing Rock. Once we're heading towards the foothills, very mild conditions, partly cloudy skies, 68 there in Lenoir, and then right around the greater Charlotte metro area, plan for low 70s from Charlotte to Concord, even out there towards Shelby. And then just to the south of that, 70 degrees in Lancaster, 69 for Chesterfield. So not a lot of complaints when it comes to the forecast today. We broke that daily high record yesterday, and we have another great opportunity to do that in the coming days as well, especially on Saturday. We're forecasting a high of 78 degrees on Saturday. So hopefully you have some outdoor plans. Our last daily high record for that day was 76 degrees set back in 2011. Rain chances, they are going to start to increase.
All right, we want to cut in on the weather because we want to get to this happening live right now. Caroline Leavitt, White House spokesperson, just got to the podium for the White House briefing. This comes ahead of President Trump's meeting with New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. Let's take a listen in to what she is saying.
Of this solid monthly job growth came from the private sector and went to Americans rather than foreign-born workers, the opposite of what we saw under the previous administration. Inflation also remains under control, and wages are up by 3.8% over the year for American workers because of President Trump's pro-growth policies. In fact, real wages are on pace to increase roughly $1,200 for the average worker this year under President Trump. This is a complete reversal of the failed Biden era when we saw inflation skyrocket to 9%, causing private sector workers to see their wages decline by approximately $3,000. We know that Americans are still hurting from the 4-decade high inflation caused by Joe Biden and the Democrats. But President Trump is making significant progress to fix this, and he will not stop working until he solves it. As the president recently stated, he is never satisfied. For example, President Trump's policies are working to make Americans' Thanksgiving more affordable this year, from their commute to the dinner table. Nearly 100 million Americans are expected to drive next week to spend time with loved ones for the holiday. And thanks to President Trump's drill baby drill agenda, the national average price of a gallon of gas on Thanksgiving Day is projected to be at the cheapest price since the COVID pandemic in 2021. President Trump is bringing down gas prices and providing significant savings to American families at the pump. And again, we expect those prices to continue to decline. According to the American Farm Bureau Federation's annual survey, cooking Thanksgiving dinner will also cost less this year than it did last year and is down about 5% overall. The average price for a staple of the meal, a 16-pound frozen turkey, is down more than 16% from last year, which will provide critical savings for families and their budgets. President Trump's entire economic agenda is aimed at putting more money back into the pockets of hardworking Americans. That's why he signed the largest middle tax cuts in history into law, from no tax on overtime, no tax on tips, to no tax on Social Security. And according to a new study from Piper Sandler, which is out this week, tax filers can expect an extra $1,000 bump to their tax refund next year, and what could be a record-breaking tax refund season. So there is more good news to come. We know these refunds will make a huge difference for Americans to help pay down their bills and use towards life's expenses. In other news this week, President Trump took a significant step toward delivering on a core campaign promise to finally close the Department of Education. To shrink the bloated federal bureaucracy, the Department of Education just entered into new interagency agreements with 4 agencies: the Departments of Labor, Interior, Health and Human Services, and State. These agencies will now ensure the delivery of legally required programs while also refocusing them to better serve students. This common sense action brings the Trump administration much closer to finally returning education where it belongs, at the state and local level, not in Washington, D.C. The Democrats' reckless 43-day government shutdown did manage to do one valuable thing. It proved that America does not need a federal Department of Education. During the longest shutdown in history, the Department of Education furloughed 90% of its staff, and America's education system was not impacted whatsoever. Schools stayed fully open across the country. Students attended class and received normal in-person instruction, and our wonderful teachers received their paychecks uninterrupted. The Democrats' government shutdown made it painfully obvious that American families do not need the Department of Education. Since its creation in 1979 during the Carter administration, the Department of Ed has spent over $3 trillion taxpayer dollars without improving student achievement. Despite pure pupil spending having increased by more than 245% since the 1970s, math and reading scores are down in public schools. In fact, the most recent Nation's Report Card from 2024 showed that 13-year-olds' math scores are the lowest they've been in decades, and their reading scores are the lowest since testing began more than 30 years ago. It's clear that throwing more money at a broken system does not work, and that's why President Trump appointed the amazing leader behind me, our Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, who is making these monumental changes at the direction of the president. We're very grateful to have you here today to talk about these changes and then take some questions. Hopefully folks in this room will have some questions on the very important topic of education. So please, Mrs. Secretary.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Caroline. It's really a pleasure to be here with you today, and thank all of you for being here as well. My purpose here is to speak directly to the American families, not just you, but to the American families, about the work this administration is doing in education to reverse our national decline with a hard reset of our educational system. That reset was a top campaign promise from President Trump to send education back to the states and end Washington's micromanagement of education once and for all. This week we took the most decisive steps thus far to make good on this promise to you. We have linked 6 groundbreaking partnerships with other federal agencies to delegate education department programs that are redundant with existing programs at Labor, State, Interior, and HHS. These interagency agreements to cut our own bureaucratic bloat are a key step in our efforts to shift educational authority from Washington, D.C. to your state education agency, your local superintendent, your local school board, entities that are accountable to you, and we encourage parents to always be involved. Cutting federal bureaucracy is never a popular move among D.C. insiders. A chorus of anti-Trump voices have come out of the woodwork to complain that we are defunding education, harming students, or acting without a plan. This could not be further from the truth. The majority of Americans across the country handed President Trump the popular vote precisely because they have seen the brokenness of a top-down education system run by the federal government. They're painfully aware that only 3 out of 10 students can read proficiently at their grade level. They know that college students are collectively $1.7 trillion in debt, and less than half of college graduates get a job that actually uses the degree which they studied so hard to get. They see more teachers than ever before leaving the profession due to burnout, over-regulation, and lack of autonomy in the classroom. Anti-Trump voices are stirring up fear that returning education to the states is a draconian action. When Americans hear that we are shutting down the department, but given no other details, 51% oppose it. But when those same Americans are informed of our plans to preserve important elements of our work in other federal agencies and to maintain the K-12 funding that is distributed to the states, that number flips to an even greater majority at 56%. And they support returning education to the states and breaking up the bureaucracy. That's because the Department of Education is a pass-through entity. It doesn't educate a single student. The money it sends to states for education can be sent directly without waste. The Democrats' government shutdown proved that without a doubt, and I'll reiterate what you said, that the Department of Education was not necessary during the shutdown. Now, this is what I've seen already on my 50-state tour that I've embarked on. Educators are innovating in their schools. States are customizing their budgets and standards, and post-secondary institutions are planning for the economy of the future. But we're not leading them. They are informing us. That's why our final mission as a department is to fully empower states to carry the torch of our educational renaissance. Education is local. It should be overseen locally by those who best know local needs. We're not ending federal support for education. We are ending federal micromanagement and paving the way for education renewal through state reforms like school choice, the science of reading, and restoring the right priorities in higher education. President Trump promised to send education back to the states, and we're keeping that promise. America's next generation will look back on the work we've carried out, thankful for an education system that prioritizes students over bureaucracy. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Secretary, and we'll take some questions for the Secretary if you have them. Elizabeth, why don't you start?
Thank you for joining us. You announced the partnership to move some functions of the Education Department to other agencies. Are you talking to members of Congress about codifying this so that it lasts beyond the administration?
Yes, we started our conversation, and thanks very much for asking that, because there have been some reports that Congress is in the dark on this. That's clearly not true. We've been talking to, I've talked to dozens of members of Congress to explain to them exactly what we're doing, to bring them up to speed, and to say to them, look, when we have completed some of these transfers that are working incredibly well, then we will be looking to Congress to codify those, make them permanent.
Brian.
Thank you. Secretary McMahon, what is the update on the negotiations with Harvard? I know the president has publicly pointed to you as somebody who's worked on that. I think you've talked about that at length, but I'd like to understand where are things with those negotiations with Harvard at this time?
They're ongoing negotiations, and I feel very comfortable that we are getting close to having those negotiations finalized. It's been open door conversation all along.
Deanna?
Hello, Mrs. Secretary. The President recently posted about establishing a federal standard for AI. Do you know if the administration has a view on the use of AI for students in schools? And Caroline, do you know if the President personally uses AI?
I don't think so.
You can handle
I've
that
never
one.
witnessed it, so I can't attest to that.
Well, I do think AI is going to need guardrails, but I have witnessed AI firsthand. I was at the Alpha School in Austin, Texas, and the first 2 hours of every day in that school, students are learning through AI. They have their headsets on, they're in front of their screens, and the AI is really acting as like an individual tutor for those students, allowing those students that can progress faster to do that. Those who need a little catch up, it refeeds information to them. And so after those 2 hours of learning, the basics of what they're doing in their curriculum that day, then they spend the rest of the day, they have good recess and all of that time, but then they spend the rest of the day in what are called life skills, and they're actually using the information that they've learned this morning. So I've seen some AI in action that is really proving quite beneficial.
Michael.
Thank you, Caroline. Secretary McMahon, as the Education Department continues to pare down, can you talk about taxpayer services like charter school grants and how the department will continue to assist kids with special needs?
Well, we are going to make sure that there's no interruption in getting that grant money out the door. That money is it comes from Congress, it's appropriated by Congress, and we legally are obligated to do that. And the transitions we're starting to make, our first programs that went over to the Department of Labor, that was a few weeks ago. We actually signed the first interagency agreement, which we accomplished under the authority of the Economy Act. We transferred grants for WIOA and for the Perkins Act. And the really good news is that the Department of Labor has a much more sophisticated system, technology system and grant fulfilling system than the Department of Education does. As a matter of fact, our executive manager that went over with that group over to Labor said he would compare what the labor system is to education's like held together by bubble gum that is not connected to any other part. So we were able to get those grants out the door more smoothly, and states have actually better access for those systems than they do at the Department of Education. So that's a real bonus.
Take a couple more. Carrie, go ahead.
As part of the diversity, equity, and inclusion new regulations that came out from the administrations, a lot of schools, whether high school or even higher education is concerned, some of them are defying these new administration policies, even apparently according to a new report.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Rick.
As far as there's been a new report from the administration saying that half of medical schools are defying the administration when it comes to DEI policies. What type of action will the administration take for these schools that are defying the new DEI policies?
Well, certainly the President has been very clear, and the Department of Education has taken measures to make sure that as schools are developing, their policies, or if they have open DEI offices, they're closed, or DEI regulations and rules are stripped, from their programs, and so that will continue.
Great. We'll take one more. Go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. Secretary McMahon, my question is, since you said 3 out of 10 students are literate with regard to their reading capacity, would now the states help to improve those numbers since you have gone back to the states?
Happening right now, you're watching live. That is Secretary Linda McMahon speaking at the White House briefing. She's answering questions from reporters. We're going to come back here at home. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We want to get back now live to Washington, D.C., where the White House briefing is taking place. That is Education Secretary Linda McMahon answering questions from reporters. Let's take a listen in.
And parents' involvement is critical to the success.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much. I appreciate your coming
All right.
today. Thanks for your great work. And
Thank
she's
you all very much.
a busy lady, so we'll let her
Come
get
on.
back to work. All right. Thank you again. Well, let's get to it. You guys were so calm with her. I wish you were that calm with me. We'll kick off with our new media seat as always. Javier, why don't you start us off and then we'll get to the rest of the room. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Javier Negre. I'm from Spain. I'm the owner of the biggest media platform in Hispanic politics with brands like La Derecha Diario, Ida TV, or UH+ or Vicegratin in Spanish. And I'm happy to be here. Thanks for supporting the new media. Also in the Hispanic community, we try to fight against media like Telemundo, Univision, CNN, or NBC News that are spreading fake news and attacking the ICE operations. We will premiere this Sunday the Real America's Voice, the right new show, the first Hispanic show against communism and woke culture that is promoted by people like George Soros to bring communism all over the world, like happened in New York. I have two questions for you, if you don't mind. In Mexico, the young people is protesting against President Sheinbaum. They think she's doing nothing against the cartels. Sheinbaum used the police to attack them, young people, kids, girls, and she's attacking journalists like me in a country where 150 journalists have been killed in the past years. The USA legacy media is attacking President Trump for his comments about the fake news media, while they are not publishing anything about the murders of journalists in Mexico. Why do you think they stay silent about the murders of journalists in Mexico and the attacks to businessmen like Ricardo Salinas? And my second question is, Trump said he has a plan for the narco state of Venezuela. Does he have a plan for Mexico where, according to Stephen Miller, the cartels are controlling governments and territories?
Sure. Well, thank you, Javier, for the question, and thank you again for being here. We're proud to have new media voices in the briefing room. As for President Sheinbaum and the president's relationship with Mexico, I will tell you that we have seen historic strides from President Sheinbaum and her administration in Mexico when it comes to cracking down on the cartels. They have been incredibly cooperative with the president's efforts at our southern border to crack down on illegal immigration and also the illegal trafficking of drugs at the southern border. Now the president is very interested in taking additional measures against the drug cartels. He's been very clear about that. He's spoken about it, and this is a promise that he made to the American public. And so his national security team is discussing these options all of the time. And on the campaign trail, the president promised to take on the cartels. He has taken unprecedented action to do so, and he has left additional options at his disposal on the table. So those are only decisions that the president can make. Thank you.
The silence of the legacy media about the murders of journalists in Mexico. 150 journalists have been killed in the past years.
Yeah, well, it's certainly something I wish the media would report on more, and it's something that this administration absolutely condemns. I can't speak for the media, but I can speak for the president. That's not something he wants to see. Thank you. Sure.
Hi, thank you, Caroline. Is there anything that Mayor-elect Mamdani could say tomorrow that would ease the president's concerns about his future leadership in New York?
Look, I don't want to speak for the president or get ahead of this meeting that we are currently working on tomorrow. As you saw, the president put out a statement tomorrow that the mayor-elect will be coming to the Oval Office, and so our teams are arranging those details. I won't get into the president's thinking on it. I think you'll all hear from him directly. I also think I will just add, it speaks volumes that tomorrow we have a communist coming to the White House, because that's who the Democrat Party elected as the mayor of the largest city in the country. I think it's very telling, but I also think it speaks to the fact that President Trump is willing to meet with anyone and talk to anyone and to try to do what's right on behalf of the American people, whether they live in blue states or red states or blue cities, in a city that's becoming much more left than I think this president ever anticipated in his many years of living in New York himself. Nancy.
Thanks, Caroline. This morning, President Trump accused 6 Democratic lawmakers of seditious behavior punishable by death. Just to be clear, does the president want to execute members of Congress?
No. Let's be clear about what the president is responding to, because many in this room want to talk about the president's response, but not what brought the president to responding in this way. You have sitting members of the United States Congress who conspired together to orchestrate a video message to members of the United States military, to active duty service members, to members of the national security apparatus, encouraging them to defy the president's lawful orders. The sanctity of our military rests on the chain of command. And if that chain of command is broken, it can lead to people getting killed. It can lead to chaos, and that's what these members of Congress who swore an oath to abide by the Constitution are essentially encouraging. We have 1.3 active duty service members in this country, and if they hear this radical message from sitting members of Congress, that could inspire chaos, and it could incite violence, and it certainly could disrupt the chain of command. These 3 members of Congress, I will also add, knew exactly what they were doing. You look at Alyssa Slotkin, she's a former member of the CIA. Mark Kelly was a captain in the U.S. Navy. Maggie Goodlander was a naval officer, and notably, she is also the wife of Joe Biden's national security former advisor, Jake Sullivan. And so these members knew what they were doing. They were leading into their credentials as former members of our military, as veterans, as former members of the national security apparatus to signal to people serving under this commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, that you can defy him and you can betray your oath of office. That is a very, very dangerous message, and it perhaps is punishable by law. I'm not a lawyer. I'll leave that to the Department of Justice and the Department of War to decide.
But the president has frequently, but Caroline, can I just follow up? The president and the vice president, for that matter, have accused the other side of encouraging political violence. Isn't that exactly what the president is doing when he says that members of Congress should be killed?
Why aren't you talking about what these members of Congress are doing to encourage and incite violence? They are literally saying to 1.3 million active duty service members not to defy the chain of command, not to follow lawful orders.
Actually, every single can refuse an illegal order, which is
they're suggesting, Nancy, that the president has given illegal orders, which he has not. Every single order that is given to this United States military by this commander-in-chief and through this chain of command, through the Secretary of War, is lawful. And the courts have proven that. This administration has an unparalleled record at the Supreme Court because we are following the laws. We don't defy court orders. We do things by the books. And to suggest and encourage that active duty service members defy the chain of command is a very dangerous thing for sitting members of Congress to do. And they should be held accountable. And that's what the president wants to see. Phil.
Thank you. Ambassador Mike Huckabee had a meeting with Jonathan Pollard, a former U.S. citizen who was convicted and spent 3 decades in jail for selling state secrets to Israel. Did the White House know that that meeting was going to happen? Does the administration condone it?
The White House was not aware of that meeting, but the president stands by our ambassador, Mike Huckabee, and all that he's doing for the United States and Israel.
You said that the president was going to do what was right for U.S. citizens, regardless of whether they lived in blue or red states. I'm curious if there's any chance in tomorrow's meeting with Mayor-elect Mamdani that he will be able to convince the president to abandon that promise to cut off federal funding to New York City.
Look, Phil, we'll see how the meeting goes tomorrow, and I'll let the president speak for himself. Natalie.
Thank you, Caroline. What did the president mean when he called reporter piggy?
Look, the president is very frank and honest with everyone in this room. You've all seen it yourself. You've all experienced it yourselves, and I think it's one of the many reasons that the American people reelected this president, because of his frankness. And he calls out fake news when he sees it. He gets frustrated with reporters when you lie about him, when you spread fake news about him and his administration. But he also is the most transparent president in history, and he gives all of you in this room, as you all know, unprecedented access. You are in the Oval Office almost every day asking the president questions, and so I think the president being frank and open and honest to your faces rather than hiding behind your backs is frankly a lot more respectful than what you saw in the last administration, where you had a president who lied lied to your face and then didn't speak to you for weeks, and hid upstairs and didn't take your questions. So I think everyone in this room should appreciate the frankness and the openness that you get from President Trump on a near daily basis.
And
Go ahead.
As a follow-up,
Yes.
The
Go
Washington
ahead.
Post just
Go
reported that the Coast Guard has
I'm
stopped
calling
considering-
on Bloomberg. Go ahead.
Caroline,
Thank you.
2 questions for you. The New York Times is reporting that the administration is now sending a U.S. official to the G20. They are sending Mark Dillard. Can you confirm if that is true, and then also explain the shift in?
I'd be happy to explain, because there is not a shift. The United States is not participating in official talks at the G20 in South Africa. I saw the South African president running his mouth a little bit against the United States and the president of the United States earlier today, and that language is not appreciated by the president or his team. The ambassador, or the representative of the embassy in South Africa, is simply there to recognize that the United States will be the host of the G20. They are receiving that send-off at the end of the event. They are not there to participate in official talks, despite what the South African president is falsely claiming.
On Ukraine, there have been reports that President Zelensky said, he's looking to look at the plan, that there's been reports about the Trump administration proposing a plan. Can you just give an update on where Russia-Ukraine stands, and does the president plan to speak with Zelensky anytime soon, or when can you expect that?
So I'm happy to provide an update. I've seen quite a bit of reporting on the latest with Russia-Ukraine, so let me clarify and give you guys the truth on where it currently stands. President Trump has made it very clear since day one, and even on the campaign trail, that he wants to see this war come to an end. He's grown increasingly frustrated with both sides of this war, Russia and Ukraine alike, for their refusal to commit to a peace agreement. But nevertheless, the president and his national security team are steadfast in seeing this war come to an end, to end the killing and deliver on the president's promise. Special Envoy Witkoff, Marco Rubio, have been working on a plan quietly for about the last month. They've been engaging with both sides, Russia and Ukraine, equally, to understand what these countries would commit to in order to see a lasting and durable peace. That's how you get to a peace negotiation, right? That's how it worked with Israel, with respect to Israel and Gaza and all of the Arab countries in the Middle East. That's how we accomplished that historic agreement, which the UN, by the way, voted to commit to and accept this week, which was a huge monumental moment. So they have been engaged with both sides, and these talks are continuing. As always, I'm not going to litigate the details of this plan, as it's ongoing and it's in flux, but the president supports this plan. It's a good plan for both Russia and Ukraine, and we believe that it should be acceptable to both sides, and we're working very hard to get it done. And I'll also add, I know Secretary Driscoll did meet with President Zelensky today. We spoke with him. He was very optimistic following that meeting, and so again, we are having good conversations with both sides with respect to ending this war.
Carolyn?
Sure. Go ahead.
Follow up on Ukraine. You said this is a good plan. So according to our sources, this proposal demands major concessions from Ukraine and doesn't demand much from Russia. So was Russia involved in drafting
Your
this?
understanding is wrong. Have you read the full plan? You haven't.
Sources said.
Yes.
So if you can give details, maybe.
You've read reporting from one side of the war, and so I want you to understand that the administration has talked equally with both sides. You have seen President Trump engage directly with both President Putin and President Zelensky. Likewise, his national security team has as well. In fact, Special Envoy Witkoff and Secretary Rubio met with some of the Ukrainians just in the past week to discuss this very plan. And so just like you saw with respect to Israel and Gaza, we are hearing out both sides of this war to understand what can you commit to end the war. And that's ultimately how we are going to get to an agreeable solution. That's what the president has directed of his team. I know there's a lot of criticism out there and a lot of doubters, but I would just remind you of the historic success that this president and his team accomplished in the Middle East. We believe that is possible with Russia and Ukraine, and we're hoping and working very hard to achieve that. Stephen.
Could you provide a little more context on what to expect tomorrow with the Mamdani meeting? Will it be in the Oval Office, or is it going to be open at least partially to the press?
I don't have any more details to read out for you on the meeting quite yet, Stephen. I know it's of great interest to you and the New York Post, but we'll keep, maybe if it opens, we can commit to letting you in. Sure, go Go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. It came up yesterday during a confirmation hearing for the president's pick to lead the CFTC that the CFTC currently has 0 Democrat commissioners, whereas usually it's had 2 or more. Does the president plan to appoint Democrats to financial regulators like the CFTC and SEC, or does the president feel that there shouldn't be Democrat leadership at those agencies, consistent with the administration's move earlier this year to remove Democrats from the FTC and other agencies?
I'm going to be completely honest. I haven't spoken to the president about the CFTC in quite some time, but I'm happy to check in with our presidential personnel office and see if there's any updates that we can provide you there. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline. Last week on Fox News, President Trump said that we've had a lot of problems with the French. How would you describe the current relationship between France and the U.S.?
Look, the relationship remains very strong. President Trump speaks quite frequently with Emmanuel Macron. I think they have a good working relationship, but the president is not shy to point out when he has disagreements with world leaders as well, and he's done that with respect to Mr. Macron as well. Deanna, go ahead.
Caroline, there are reports that Qatar is acting as a mediator in the Ukraine peace process. Can you confirm that, and why did the president choose that country?
I'm not going to get into further details other than what I previously shared, which I think was quite a bit of information. Brian?
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions. You were talking about 4 earlier in this briefing about the president's orders. You were going back and forth about what the ad said and what it didn't say. My first question is...
The ad?
The advertisement that the Senate Democrats were featured in. So my first question is, no matter what the order is, it could be to any administration official, military or otherwise, no matter if legal experts might think it's illegal, does the president expect those cabinet members, administration officials to go ahead with those orders regardless of any outside thinking or experts?
The president expects his cabinet officials in the administration to follow the law and to demand accountability and hold people accountable for their dangerous rhetoric. And I would just add that if this were Republican members of Congress who were encouraging members of the military and members of our United States government to defy orders from the president and from the chain of command, this entire room would be up in arms. But instead, it is the other way around, and I think that's quite telling. I'm going to let you all go because the president, excuse me, I appreciate the encouragement this afternoon, but President Trump is about to meet in minutes with Israeli hostages who this administration freed, and so I'm going to go up to that meeting, and you will hear more about that later. Thank you.
You misquoted Democrats in that video. That's actually not what they said.
All right, so that was Caroline Levitt, White House press secretary, wrapping up that White House briefing there. You see the press there in that room for the White House briefing that happens weekly. All right, so we want to come back home. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We want to go back now to Washington, D.C., where we are hearing from lawmakers. Specifically, we're hearing from Democratic leaders. Let's take a listen into what is being said right now. They've been there for some time. Right now, they're answering questions from reporters.
One of them says that you will not be able to consider matters such as climate change in listing species as endangered. I wonder, what's your reaction to that? Are you going to oppose that?
Of course, this is all in keeping with their, well, let me say, use the president's language. He said this whole climate issue is the biggest con job in American history, always projecting his own vulnerability onto others. President Trump is the biggest con job in American history. And so what they're doing, again, this is God's creation. Everything in nature is connected. You can't just say we're going to do this or that and connect it from everything else in nature. But it's just as that's how they treat people. We don't want to have any differentiation with people either. That's why you have to have truth. We have to make sure people are not apathetic about listening to what is at stake here, truth and trust in the collaboration that we want to have. Collaboration, the transparency of it all. And what they're doing, that's almost irreversible. That's why it's really important for us to win this election so that we at least can hold up some of that. And then hopefully we can have some truth and trust in the Supreme Court so they don't let him get away with destroying God's creation.
One of the points I made in Brazil is that at events like the COP, you see the smiling mask of the fossil fuel industry.
Oh my God, they're in heaven.
But if you want to see their true face, you look at what they are having the Trump administration do. And the depravity of the corruption, the depravity of the lying, and the disinterested in anybody's well-being other than the big donors, that's the true face of the fossil fuel industry, and we need to recognize that. Thank you all very much, and thank you particularly to the leader and Speaker Matter for coming over.
Thank you. Did you want to say something on that?
No. What about the Endangered Species Act?
Okay.
The failure to protect endangered species represents an assault on the divine creativity of Almighty God, and we plan to strongly oppose it. It's an outrageous.
All right, so you're watching live there. Dem leaders, Hakeem Jeffries, also Nancy Pelosi there, talking about different topics there amongst the Trump administration. You got questions from reporters. They answer questions from reporters there inside that press room. All right, so we want to shift gears now. We brought you weather earlier, and we had to cut it off. I know if you're watching the forecast, you were like, why did you have to cut it off? We had to get to something live, but we want to go back to it. We want to get to that forecast because, guys, I don't know what season we're in. It says fall on the calendar.
Why are you complaining?
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying I was confused. I'm not complaining.
It sounds like you're
All right, let me change my
complaining
tone.
about it. Yeah.
It is almost 80 degrees.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's almost 80 degrees. All right. I can deal with it. I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. It doesn't feel like the holidays, but maybe it will soon. I don't know. But let's check in with meteorologist Majestic Storm for a full forecast.
Well, good Thursday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm, and we have another very nice day today. You can see Dallas out there, generally a good mix of sun and clouds across much of the state of North and even South Carolina. Now, today you're going to notice increasing cloud coverage as we progress more into the afternoon and even into the evening. However, our temperatures, they'll still rise into the lower end of the 70s. Now, it's not going to be quite as warm as yesterday. Yesterday, we broke our daily daily high record, nearing almost 80 degrees. And then we have some rain showers moving in overnight tonight and into early Friday morning. Scattered rain. Not everyone will see it, but I do think many folks will. Friday's going to be a mainly cloudy day, and it's not going to be rain all throughout your Friday. So if you have any plans, it's mainly early in the morning and then late Friday night. This weekend, not too bad. Comfortable temperatures, small rain chances. Look at this, though. Yesterday, we did break that daily high record. We topped off at 79 degrees, and today, 72. Still about 10 degrees above where we should be for this time of the year, but definitely not quite as warm as where we were yesterday. Notice throughout the day, we started out with beautiful, clear, sunny skies. Now, as we're into the afternoon, a nice mix of sun and clouds, and then by late day, you'll have mainly cloudy conditions. Now, if you're in the mountains, you're going to get the rain a little sooner rather than later, and you'll have much more cloud coverage move in quicker as well. 64 degrees for your high today in Boone, 60 degrees in Blowing Rock. Once we're heading towards the foothills, very mild conditions, partly cloudy skies, 68 there in Lenoir, and then right around the greater Charlotte metro area, plan for low 70s from Charlotte to Concord, even out there towards Shelby. Then just to the south of that, 70 degrees in Lancaster, 69 for Chesterfield. So not a lot of complaints when it comes to the forecast today. We broke that daily high record yesterday, and we have another great opportunity to do that in the coming days as well, especially on Saturday. We're forecasting a high of 78 degrees on Saturday. So hopefully you have some outdoor plans. Our last daily high record for that day was 76 degrees, set back in 2011. Rain chances, they are going to start to increase slowly but surely again tonight and into Friday, and then again Friday night and into early Saturday morning. Rain chances go down Sunday and into Monday, and then leading into Thanksgiving week, we do have some rain chances, but at this point, none of it seems to be a washout. Here's our satellite and radar. We're mainly watching the system that's off to the west of us. It's taken its time, but that's where those clouds will be coming from, and that's where those rain showers will also be coming from once they actually reach us. So let's time this out. Here's our futurecast, 9 o'clock tonight. You can see mainly up in the mountain counties first, heading into Friday morning. There's 5 o'clock in the morning, some light to moderate rain, possibly for that early morning commute. Friday as a whole, though, remember, this is a cloudy day, and we'll start out dry, and then here we go on Friday evening. Here's about 5 o'clock. Could even see a few isolated thunderstorms, even brief heavy downpours. But as far as our temperatures go, it seems like we're going to stay well above average, taking us straight into Thanksgiving. But let me just say, enjoy it while we have it, because we're also starting to see some trends that leading into the first week of December, we're going to have a significant drop off. I mean, temperatures will plummet with daytime highs only into the 40s. Here's that Jerry Hunt Super Center 7-day forecast. 70s for the next 3 days, small rain chances here and there, mild throughout the weekend, and then some changes coming really after Thanksgiving.
All right, so that is your full forecast. All right, so we want to go now to Frankfort, Kentucky, where we are hearing from Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear. So moments ago, and I believe he's still talking about it, but talking about that Louisville plane crash involving a UPS aircraft. Let's take a listen into what he is saying at this moment.
Let's make sure we're the type of Kentuckians we've proven that we are time and time again. All right, with that, I'm going to introduce our First Lady, who is going to give an update on Violence Against Women Act grants, as well as KSP Cram the Cruiser, which will help other families this Thanksgiving.
Good afternoon, everybody. All right. As First Lady and as a mom to two mostly great teenagers, my number one goal is to make our Commonwealth a safer place for all of our families. Too many Kentuckians have faced the trauma of being a victim of domestic violence. That's why Team Kentucky has awarded more than $162 million to victim service agencies. Andy has signed legislation to make sexual extortion a felony, and he has strengthened protections that keep children safe from abuse. Each year, I'm proud to partner with Zero V for the Shop and Share donation drive. This annual event provides food and essentials to domestic violence survivors and their families. Today, we are awarding more than $2.1 million to 29 organizations across the Commonwealth that support victim services. This funding allows us to support law enforcement, victim services, and state and local courts to combat violent crimes and seek justice for victims. Some of the award recipients include the Baptist Health Foundation, Hardin. Funding will be supporting the hospital sexual assault nurse examiner and forensic team program in Elizabethtown. The Davies County Attorney's Office. Funding will go to support 2 assistant county attorney positions to prosecute domestic violence. Bethany House, a domestic violence shelter that serves 10 counties in the Lake Cumberland area. This funding will allow for a court advocate for victims of domestic violence. Springhaven, a domestic violence shelter that serves 8 counties in the Lincoln Trail area. This funding will allow them to support a victim advocate position. Those are just a few of the agencies who will be awarded these funds. But sadly, more than 45% of women and 35% of men in Kentucky experience physical violence or sexual assault in their lifetimes. These are not just numbers. They are our neighbors and our friends. These are men, women, and children from every community in our state. It takes a lot of bravery and support for survivors to overcome these types of experiences. I am proud that together Kentuckians are standing ready to help. We will not stop fighting and working until every Kentuckian is safe from domestic violence. Thank you to all the organizations across Kentucky who do this hard work. I know it's emotional and difficult, but your work truly saves lives. If you or someone you know is a victim of domestic violence and needs assistance, please know that there is help available. Reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline by calling 1-800-799-SAFE. Okay. Every day, far too many of our people go hungry. A child going hungry is never okay. A parent skipping a meal just so he or she has enough to feed their kids puts the entire family at risk. And a senior not knowing where their next meal will come from is a fear that no one should have to face. That's why I'm proud we have so many people across the Commonwealth stepping up to help. Today, I want to highlight yet another way we can help our neighbors in need. The Kentucky State Police Cram the Cruiser Drive began yesterday and will continue through December 5th. We are asking for non-perishable food items like canned fruit, vegetables, peanut butter, canned soup, cereal, coffee, water, powdered milk, juices, anything you can think of that is non-perishable will be appreciated. These donations can be dropped off at any KSP post. Troopers will be stationed at various grocery and retail stores across the Commonwealth, ready to accept donations as well. Last year, Team Kentucky showed up, like they always do, collecting over 204,000 pounds of food. I'm confident this year will be just as successful. These opportunities remind us we can all help. Every donation, every can, will make a difference. The Cram the Cruiser food drive comes at the perfect time. As we all know, the Trump administration used the federal shutdown to withhold SNAP benefits from our people. More than 600,000 Kentuckians rely on SNAP. Those are our neighbors. Those are our friends. Those are families. Those are people who we care about because they are common. These are people. These are our neighbors, and our faith teaches us that our neighbors are not the people who live just next door to us. They are the people who are across town, across the state, across the country. They are human beings and they matter. No person should starve because their benefits have been cut off. Andy stood up, he spoke out, he filed a lawsuit to restore SNAP funding. Court ruled in our favor, and Kentucky was one of the first states to process and deliver benefits to our fellow neighbors. We know people are still hurting. We're approaching the Christmas season, and to me, Christmas is about the spirit of giving. And the Cram the Cruiser food drive is the perfect way to show that spirit. So let's cram the cruiser, make the holidays a little bit easier and a lot brighter for our friends and family across the Commonwealth. More information can be found at kentuckystatepolice.ky.gov. And now the Lieutenant Governor is going to come up and talk about the Main Street program and rising screenings.
All right, good afternoon. We have an update on Rising, the documentary from.
All right, so you're watching a press conference in Kentucky. We heard from the First Lady there in Kentucky. We also heard from Governor Andy Beshear. So that is happening live as we speak. We also got an update on the Louisville plane crash from weeks ago. But we want to come back home and we want to take a break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We want to go back to Frankfort, Kentucky, where we are hearing from the governor there, Andy Beshear. Let's take a listen into what is being said at this moment.
Governor's Cup will be handed out on a governor's birthday. The football game will be much more exciting than a 48th birthday. Now for this week's Team Kentucky All-Star. I've always said that Kentucky has some of the best emergency management teams in the world, and now we got a title to back that up. This week, the International Association of Emergency Managers named Woodford County Director Drew Chandler as the 2025 Emergency Manager of the Year. His leadership over the last decade has transformed Woodford County's program through his commitment to preparedness, innovation, and community collaboration. Director Chandler has navigated major emergencies in Woodford County like ice storms, chemical spills, and the devastating floods in February and April of this year. In addition to his great leadership, some accomplishments that garnered this award included launching Woodford County Alerts, their emergency notification system that has been replicated across the country. He secured over $4.1 million in grants for life-saving infrastructure, and he co-founded the Kentucky Emergency Services Conference, an organization that donates substantial funds for professional development for emergency teams. I think we all know how important it is to be prepared. And the work that Director Chandler has done for Woodford County and the state will save lives and has saved lives. So congratulations, Drew. You're not only the 2025 Emergency Manager of the Year, but you're this week's Team Kentucky All-Star. Admittedly, this one doesn't come with a trophy, but a lot of gratitude from the state. All right, before we open it up to questions, just a couple of quick things. Earlier this month, we lowered flags for 3 reasons. First, Governor Collins' passing. Second, the UPS plane crash. And third, the reason that they are still down is the death of Vice President Dick Cheney. Now that his funeral services were carried out this morning at Washington National Cathedral and that he is being interned in a private ceremony today, flags will return to full staff at sunset today. Also, there will be no Team Kentucky update next week as it's Thanksgiving, and we figure we give everyone at least a good Thanksgiving off. So we'll be back with our next update December 4th at a regular time, 12:30 p.m. With that, we have a lot of journalists in the room. I'll go through them, and then we've got a number online too. I've got a hard out at about 2:40, so I will try to give short answers. We've got a list we'll go down. First, Alexandra from WHAS.
Hi, Governor. I have two questions, if I can. NTSB investigators found evidence of fatigue cracks and overstress failure. Should UPS be responsible for this?
I've only gotten to view fairly quickly the preliminary report that came out. Certainly what jumps out is the fatigue or stress cracks. I want to learn a little bit more about what that means. I do know that the plane had undergone, at least from what I read, the regular suggested maintenance and reviews, but certainly this is something we have to learn more about. In the end, this was a UPS plane that was involved, so UPS needs to be a part of the healing and the help to families. They've set up a significant fund that right now is providing a lot of help. So we're watching the situation, but I am at least pleased that UPS is directly communicating with families, with those impacted, and will continue to hope and encourage them to do their part to rebuild.
My second question, is it fair that medical cannabis dispensaries can sell their licenses and change physical addresses? And do you think that this has the potential to push out Kentuckians?
The medical cannabis program was set up through clear and transparent rules and regulations, all of which were published, all of which people could have objected to, all of which went through the legislature. To change them now would subject it to lawsuits, would probably require us to redo the entire thing and push off access to folks for probably a couple of years. What we did is we put patients first. Before business, before everything else, we put the veterans suffering from PTSD first, and we are going to have one of the fastest programs from initiation, from when we could hold that lottery to ultimate product on the shelf, which we believe will be at the end of this year without a single court order enjoining us that I've seen in the country. Okay, Carolina.
Governor, state testing results that were released earlier this week show that Kentucky students performed better the last school year than they have in prior years. So moving into a budget session, what does this tell you in terms of investment?
Yeah.
What would you like to see in it?
Well, very proud of our educators and our Kentucky students for test results, though they need to be better than they are right now. I think we all want improvement and significant improvement. What we need is continued investment. I'll be releasing portions of my budget likely in December as we get close to the next session of the General Assembly. But certainly it requires investment in students. That's the SEEK formula and other investments that can be made. It requires investments in facilities like we've made to our CTE programs over the years, and it requires investment in our educators. If we want the best of the best educating our kids, which will always help in test scores, we've got to make sure that they are fairly compensated. But I think the most important thing we can do to improve our test scores over time and make sure we don't lose any kids is finally pass pre-K for all 4-year-olds in Kentucky. When we look at those test scores going up, that's great, but we still have over 50% of Kentucky kids that show up to kindergarten not ready. And in the past, I don't think I've given tangible examples of that. So I had a kindergarten teacher that was in my office the other day that had 5 students that showed up for kindergarten not potty trained. How are you going to educate those kids at that point? Another one had, I think, 10 students that didn't know their colors yet. So pre-K gives us the opportunity not to have people fall behind before they ever start and to continue to improve those scores. So all pieces that we ought to invest in, all nonpartisan. I continue to remind people that when I say pre-K for all and they say, oh, that's just political, that 4-year-olds can't vote. They can't register, and that they're not a part of any party. They just deserve our investment. Bodie.
Thank you, Governor. On the GE announcement, aside from Louisville already having some existing infrastructure there, was there anything else that kind of helped position Kentucky for moving these services here and pull back the curtain stuff on some of the deal making that was involved there? If there was a timeline that led up to this announcement.
I've been talking with our major Kentucky employers and smaller Kentucky employers about sourcing more of their supply chain in Kentucky for the last several years. We can bring in a new employer, we can help someone expand, but also when we connect one Kentucky company with another, we reduce their transportation costs, we reduce their input costs that go in to that whole, to that final product. We give them more reliability because they can communicate in real time with that other company, and we get jobs on both ends. Now, I think this is just another step in what happened in that last big announcement when GE put in the dishwasher unit. So GE put in the dishwasher unit, and they have a stainless steel dishwasher that we have in the governor's mansion. It works really well. But when they were doing the stainless steel, they sourced it with North American Stainless just down the road in Carroll County. So they added, I think, about 500 jobs on the line in Louisville at GE Appliances, but it created about 100 extra jobs at North American Stainless. And I know how proud Kevin Nolan and GE Appliances were at that time about the impact that it made, but also saw that reliability. So this is their commitment. This is Kevin's commitment to America, not just Kentucky, but when Kevin and GE Appliances make a commitment to America, it comes right out of Kentucky and Louisville, Kentucky. They believe in American manufacturing, and we lost too much American manufacturing, and so this is going to support the suppliers, help them build up, and ultimately that'll benefit GE and others. But this is somebody I talk to on a regular basis because I want to pick his brain and GE Appliances brain about how we do more of this. I mean, they're a great team Kentucky partner, both in the investments and in the advice. Stefan.
Well, Governor, with GE Appliances receiving state support for this large expansion, what commitments has the company made in return, and how will you ensure Kentucky taxpayers see long-term growth beyond the 800 jobs announced today?
Yeah, when I look at GE Appliances, this used to be one of the largest, if not the largest employer in Kentucky. That's UPS right now. They'd gotten down to just a couple thousand jobs in the last administration, and they started growing from there. They really started growing when they were able to break away from the bigger GE and become their own company with their own margins that didn't contribute to that overall GE stock price. And just to see the growth now up to 8,000 strong is incredible. We have incentivized these investments, but all our incentives are earned here in Kentucky. We don't just give cash payments. So you don't create the jobs, you don't get the full incentive. As long as you are within a certain margin of error, you get a percentage of those. Thus far, they have met. In fact, they have exceeded every single one of those deals we've seen. Remember, they have a certain time period to do them. And they don't get a cash payment. They get a credit off of different taxes that they would otherwise pay, but for the new jobs that are coming in. And I'm proud that Kentucky has stuck to that. Yes, we have some newer forms of incentives that help us compete with other places, but more than just about any other state we compete with, you got to earn them to ultimately get that incentive. But I see a company that is growing, that is excited. You can feel it when you're out there. They're repurposing buildings, and I don't think this will be the last announcement while I'm governor that we'll hear from GE Appliances. Logan.
Yeah, so, we heard from the people in close care, they're proud to be in Kentucky, we know that there's some factories going to create 800 new jobs, hopefully bring all this business to and keep it in Kentucky. For the average Kentuckian, not GE Appliances, why would they care? Tell us why this impacts the average?
Yeah. Well, first, the average Kentuckian cares about their neighbor. And there are hundreds of extra families that are able to put food on their table, that have a good job, that are going to be able to provide that better future for their kids. You know, one of the things I'm most concerned about in the United States right now is the number of people who believe the American dream is no longer attainable. One of the reasons that our country's been so productive is the idea that if you work hard and play by the rules, you can get ahead. But right now, you look at the cost of housing, you look at the cost of groceries. You know, people can't afford a home in the same decade that their parents did, and can't take their family on that same vacation that they were able to. Well, with good jobs and stable jobs like this, more families have a chance to achieve that American dream. But today, in addition to the big previous announcement that came with the jobs from GE Appliances, they're sourcing more materials in Kentucky. So you may live somewhere outside of Louisville where those materials are coming from, and you'll see extra jobs. It might not make an announcement, it might not be 50, but if it's 3 here, 5 there, and 8 somewhere else, I remember the Great Recession, and we celebrated when we could create those 8 jobs. They are just as important to those 8 families. So how I see GE Appliances is it's a major driver, just like a Ford, a Toyota, or others. And when they're doing well, all those suppliers around them do well, and now they have more Kentucky suppliers than ever before. All right, on the phone, we have Tom Latek.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon to you. In your press release on the GE Appliances investment, it mentions, without saying what it is, a company in Frankfurt. Can you tell me what that is?
Oh, Tom, let me get you that information. It is not.
All right, so that is Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear. They're live for his weekly press conference. Again, he does his weekly, giving updates on all things Kentucky. We're going to move away from that, and we want to come back here at home, and we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. So we want to get to some news. We brought it to you as breaking news off the top of the show and been continuing to update you on Border Patrol operations here in Charlotte. So we learned earlier this afternoon, right before we got onto the stream, Sheriff McFadden has been advised that Charlotte's Web, that's the name of the operation, has concluded I do want to point out ICE remains operational in Mecklenburg County, which that is common. There's an ICE field office here in Charlotte. So that's common, but Border Patrol, their operation Charlotte's Web has ended. WCNC Charlotte's Bria Smith is here in studio with us, joining us with more on the end of the operation. Again, we got this news right after noon, early in the afternoon. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so I spoke with the executive director of Embrace All Latino Voices, who has been in constant communication with me about, what we've been experiencing, what we've been seeing unfold in our community over the past week. And he mentioned, the first thing he said was, while I might be able to get some sleep, some better sleep than I have the past few days, is it truly over, were his words. And so obviously we know that, as of today, Operation Charlotte Webs, like you mentioned, is no longer moving away out of Charlotte. However, the impact that had on the community kind of will linger, as he expressed that people that he deals with, his clients, are fearful still of what's to come, especially with ICE, remaining in the city. So he's a little relieved, but also just worried about what that means for other cities, or other, within our state, but also throughout the country.
Did he mention, and I know this is early, did he mention about what's next? Because I know we've seen protests. I know we've seen training at churches on what folks can and can't do when it comes to Border Patrol. But did he touch on what's next? Again, I know it's early and they're still trying to figure out things. Did he say anything towards that?
Yeah, well, as far as his organization goes, actually this Saturday they will have from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. kind of a coffee sit down with the individuals that he works with, people who benefit from the services of that organization, as well as an attorney, to kind of just walk them through like what just happened, right? What you can do moving forward if you're someone who was maybe in a situation of an operation, right? So just kind of educating the community as far as that specific organization and what he and his team are doing to kind of help people move forward from a pretty heavy filled week.
And we also heard from Mayor Lyles. We have a statement. Do you have that statement?
I can pull it up.
So I want to read that for us as we update you. You can catch Bria. I had your show times 5 and 6 o'clock. All right, so we heard from Mayor Lyles. Here is the statement. You see it right there on your screen. So she says, it appears that U.S. Border Patrol has ceased its operations in Charlotte. I'm relieved for our community and the residents, businesses, and all those who were targeted and impacted by this intrusion. So that's just part of her statement. Did he speak towards what the city's response and what leaders have said and their stance when it comes to this operation? Obviously, Mayor Lyles has said she's been against it. Governor Josh Stein has been against it. But did he speak towards what the city has responded?
Yeah, well, he acknowledged that, their statements, right? But he says ultimately immigration reform is something that they'll have to take a look at, just because he mentioned, he is an immigrant, but now an American citizen. And he really hopes, what his message was, that he hopes that people can see just how integrated, they are within our community. And how they've become a part of, our next door neighbors, right? Whether it is with the economic standpoint, the businesses, the work, landscapers, construction, and hoping that people can just embrace inclusivity moving forward. So yeah, he acknowledged, their efforts there, but just pretty much is saying that, there's more work to be done.
Yeah, and Charlotte is a vibrant and diverse community. It's what makes Charlotte Charlotte. Bria, thank you for your time. Again, you can catch Bria at 5 and 6 o'clock this evening in studio. Again, Bria, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's take a break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We want to head now to Capitol Hill, where we are hearing from lawmakers, the Senate floor. Let's take a listen in. This is happening live. Let's take a listen in to what's being said right now.
Secretary Kennedy has a legal responsibility to disperse the current LIHEAP funding. And it's illegal for him to withhold those funds, as well as really pretty cruel. The reality is that this summer, we in Congress came together on a bipartisan basis to increase and to pass the $4 billion in funding for the program. And again, I emphasize, it's not a red state, blue state deal. It's not a Republican, Democratic deal. It's a person who's in a home, doesn't have money, and is cold. That's what it's about. So I'm calling on President Trump and Secretary Kennedy to stop stalling and to act with alacrity and release the LIHEAP funding for the benefit of the people in the state of Vermont and in every state in this country who depend on it. Mr. President, I yield back.
All right, so that is a live look at the Senate floor. We are hearing from leaders there. They continue debate on this Thursday afternoon. All right, so Thanksgiving is exactly 1 week from today. Are you excited, Carlene?
I'm very excited.
I'm excited. Thanksgiving, as I mentioned before, and you've probably seen it, I've said it over and over. It's my favorite holiday.
Favorite holiday, yeah.
Favorite holiday. Love Thanksgiving. Love it. Love
to eat.
Love to eat. Love the turkey. I love the traditional Thanksgiving food. I don't have it often, but I love it.
Yeah, that's why. So that's why you go in when it's Thanksgiving. Yeah.
So Thanksgiving, a lot of you guys have plans. That includes air travel. That includes
for a lot
flying.
of people.
We were talking about this during the break. Neither one of us have traveled, like flown.
No, for
on
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, Christmas. So I wouldn't even know what the struggle would be.
I've heard of such struggle, but you and I have not experienced.
Yeah, no, I've covered obviously Thanksgiving travel in my
Yes.
years of reporting and Christmas travel. I've seen how hectic it can be and how busy it is and how stressed out folks are, how relieved folks are when they finally touch down to their destination. I completely understand that, but I've never experienced that personally. So with that being said, a lot of you guys are going to fly. And a lot of you guys are wanting to see your loved ones, your friends, get to your destination safely. And it's our job to help you navigate that. Charlotte Airport, Charlotte
Busy.
Douglas, it's going to be busy. It is
Busy.
busy on a random day in April. It's going to be busy, leading up to Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Let's take you now, in case you missed it, to an update and things you need to know from Charlotte Douglas International Airport's officials there. They held a press conference this week. Let's take a listen into what was said.
Good afternoon. And thank you for joining us today as we gear up for what will be a busy Thanksgiving travel season. My name is Ted Kaplan. That's TEDKAPLAN. And I'm the Charlotte Douglas International Airport's Chief Business and Innovation Officer. CLT is prepared to welcome nearly 2 million passengers between November 20th and December 1st, many of whom will be experiencing our newly expanded and renovated terminal lobby for the first time. This constitutes an approximate 10% reduction from last year's record-breaking travel numbers Nearly 9,000 aircraft will depart during this period. This will be the first major holiday post-construction with all 3 security checkpoints operating at full capacity. We anticipate 430 passengers traveling through our checkpoints during the November 20th, December 1st period, which is roughly equivalent to last year this same time. The busiest travel days of this period will be November 29th through December 1st. The Saturday, Sunday, and Monday following Thanksgiving, each with more than 84,000 passengers traveling through the airport. The busiest of these days will be Sunday, November 30th, with approximately 181,000 total travelers. The recent federal shutdown certainly presented a considerable challenge across the national aviation system and at this airport, but we do not anticipate significant impacts at CLT during this holiday week as a result of any lingering fallout from the shutdown. Our focus this season is on giving every traveler a safe and smooth trip. We're working closely with our federal and airline partners to keep operations running smoothly and efficiently. We want to sincerely thank and express our appreciation for our partners at the TSA, the FAA, and the airlines for their continued dedication and professionalism, especially over the last month and a half. They're working hard behind the scenes every day so that travelers can depend on a safe and reliable journey. A few travel tips for passengers as they come to Charlotte this season. We understand that some travelers may feel nervous after the shutdown, and our message is simple. Plan ahead and allow extra time. Check your flight status directly with the airline. Use the CLT Airport app for parking, maps, and checkpoint wait times. Parking will be in very high demand this season, as it is every Thanksgiving season. Book in advance at parkclt.com or through the app to guarantee a spot. TSA lines may be slow at times. Please show patience and kindness to frontline staff as you travel through the checkpoints. In October, wait times averaged about 10 minutes at standard checkpoints and under 5 minutes at pre-check. Thank you to our entire CLT team, as well as our airline and federal partners, for your hard work and care. For our customers, holiday travel truly takes a team. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I'll now turn it over to Pascual Alvarez at American Airlines.
Thank you, Ted. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pascual Alvarez, American Airlines Managing Director of Customer Care here at Charlotte Airport. My team and I have the honor of being some of the first to welcome customers to Charlotte Airport as they begin their travel journey with Charlotte's hometown airline. I'm excited to share American is ready to get customers to their Thanksgiving table following the government shutdown related travel disruptions for the industry. Throughout those unprecedented times, our focus continued to be on recovery, reliability, and more importantly, resilience. In fact, American's operations stood out, delivering leading on-time departure and arrival performance amongst the 3 major airlines. Throughout the time in which the FAA issued an ordinance on flight reductions. Now that we have returned to operating a full schedule, American's Charlotte hub is prepared to operate nearly 8,000 scheduled flights throughout the Thanksgiving travel period. It's part of our commitment to deliver a safe and reliable operation, and that goal wouldn't be possible without the dedication and support of more than 15,500 team members who call the Queen City home. The close collaboration amongst our teams helped to produce results we can be proud of, and that includes achieving Charlotte's best baggage handling performance for October and maintaining the same positive momentum as we head into the holidays. Every bag, every customer, every interaction is important to ensuring that we offer an enjoyable experience from check-in to takeoff. Through new technology to assist with customer connections, revamped mobile app, self-service kiosk, and additional boarding time, these are just a few examples of how American is investing in caring for you on your life's journey. Also new this holiday season, we're excited to launch several new destinations beginning next month, including Gateway Ski Country in Aspen and Vail, as well as an escape to warmer in Palm Springs, Florida. customers now have the option to enjoy more than 170 destinations American serves nonstop from Charlotte, whether it involves visiting family and friends or closing the year out with a final vacation. We encourage everyone to be prepared to downloading the American Airlines mobile app, in addition to enrolling in our AA Advantage loyalty program to earn miles and enjoy travel perks. We're at the start of yet another fun and exciting holiday season and look forward to delivering to our customers with support from our partners at CLT, TSA, CBP, and local law enforcement. I'd now like to introduce Lieutenant Chad Strong with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Lieutenant Chad Strong with Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department's Airport Division. As everybody has already said, we're anticipating a higher than normal travel volume on the days preceding and after the travel holidays. So what we're asking is that everyone try to plan ahead, arrive a few hours early, and try not to be rushed. Understand that we as a division, we are deploying additional officers, so we will have officers as needed out in front of Josh Birmingham Parkway and on Wilkinson Boulevard. If traffic does tend to back up, just please be patient, follow the traffic signals, try not to enter the intersection and block down the intersection if you are coming in and you see traffic start to back up on Josh Birmingham. Inside the terminal, we're asking that everybody please check, double check, triple check your baggage and your personal items and your person for any TSA prohibited items, particularly firearms. Please remember that firearms are prohibited in the airport, along with magazines, along with ammunition. We don't want anybody's travel to be delayed because you inadvertently forgot that you left a firearm in your bag. So what we're just asking is be responsible gun owners, know where your firearms are, and make sure you don't bring them to the airport. And just like everyone else said, we ask that everybody be patient. We will have additional officers in the concourses, so should you need anything, we will be available. Just reach out to any officers for anything you might need, but just have patience. Please understand and just be kind to all our CLT partners and everybody you encounter. Thank you.
All right, so that concludes our formal remarks. We're going to take some questions. Do we have a stand? All right, and then I'll ask Ted and Pasquale and Lieutenant Strong to come up here and we'll take questions. Say it in here, Ted.
First of all, I'd like to ask Ted and Pasquale, did you say there'd be a decline in passenger traffic through Charlotte at Thanksgiving? Did I hear you say that?
Yes, sir. We are seeing a marginal decline in traffic year over year.
Year over year.
I thought you said 10%. But
10% year over year.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's not marginal.
I would characterize it as marginal.
And I'd like to ask Pasquale, is that being seen in American stats, and if so, why?
Can you repeat the question?
Is there a 10% decline in your traffic here at Thanksgiving, and if so, why is there such a large decline?
We're not seeing that fully materializing 10%, and we're actually very optimistic of what our future bookings will look like, particularly for the Christmas timeframe. We're still operating 8,000 flights a day throughout this time, so we're optimistic that our volumes will continue to rebound.
But it is down 10%.
Not nearly 10%, but very close.
In Charlotte or everywhere, or system-wide?
Just Charlotte Airport.
And you have 700 departures a day here?
Close, 658 to be precise.
And one more for you.
Sure.
Is Charlotte going to become a 787 pilot base?
I'll get back to you on that.
Here, back to here.
Yeah, I'm curious. I guess this would be for maybe the officer, Lieutenant Strong and Ted. I think it was last Thanksgiving that we had a lot of traffic in front of the airport, and you mentioned there are going to be some extra officers. Anything else that you've done or that just gives you confidence that this will be a smoother process in getting people onto the property this year?
So as I mentioned, we are going to be rotating officers out in case we do see traffic backups to help deal with that flow. We're also working with City Department of Transportation to try to see if we can get our officers trained on the ability to use the traffic control devices so that they can control the traffic signals themselves. So if they see backups in one direction, they can kind of have an easier way to let it run and try to ease that a little faster.
I would also just add that in addition to everything that the lieutenant just said, that I think with construction being fully complete, both in terms of the curb in front of the building as well as everything inside the building, I think it will just make everything flow that much smoother.
All right, so that is an update from officials there at Charlotte Douglas International Airport. All right, so we want to head now to something live. We want to head now to the Senate floor. Right now, Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina is speaking. Let's take a listen into what he is saying.
I would say to the senator from South Carolina, the answer to that is yes.
Was this provision socialized with committees of relevant jurisdiction?
The answer is yes.
Was this committee sent, with this issue sent to the Ethics Committee?
Yes.
Okay, so this wasn't Republicans doing this. This was people in the Senate believing what happened to the Senate need never again. What happened to the Senate? There's a statute right on point that governs data to be released by the Sergeant of Arms. And it says in that statute, notwithstanding a judicial order, data from the Senate cannot be released by subpoena or even a judicial order without the body being notified because of the separation of powers issue. That statute was violated and there's no remedy. What are we trying to do to make sure this doesn't happen again to me or you? The reason I think Senator Schumer worked with Senator Thune is they're worried about the body here. We have a contract with Verizon, the Senate does, that requires us to be notified if any senator's phone records are requested or any member working for the body. There were 197 subpoenas issued in Arctic frost. There are 430 Republican groups. Turning Point USA, the Republican National Committee, the Republican Attorney General Association, the Conservative Partnership Institute, Mark Meadows, Stephen Miller, 400-something groups that were targeted. What was going on here? What was Jack Smith up to? What was he trying to do? I think what he was trying to do is use lawfare against Donald Trump. Within 3 days of saying I'm running again for president in 2022 for the 2024 cycle, Jack Smith was appointed special counsel. Within 8 or 9 months, 91 charges were levied against President Trump in New York, Manhattan, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., and the bluest of blue. I wound up getting subpoenaed by Fannie Willis in Fulton County and spent $1.2 million going to that grand jury, having to testify what I did as Judiciary Chairman. If you remember, on January the 6th, I was actually here. I think I did my part to make sure we certified the election. I voted to certify everything. So what's going on here, nobody actually knows. And to the two leaders of the body, thank you for making sure we're going to do something to protect the Senate, not only from what happened to us, but what could happen to anybody in the future. This is really outrageous. You want to use that word? I am really outraged that my private cell phone and my official phone were subpoenaed without cause, that a judge would suggest that I would destroy evidence or tamper with witnesses if I were told about what was going on. And I'm sure the other senators, Haggerty, Hawley, Sullivan, Tuberville, Johnson, Scott, Loomis, Blackburn, Ted Cruz, at least one staff member, the Speaker of the House, now we know, Kevin McCarthy, they asked for his phone records the day he was sworn in as Speaker, and AT&T apparently gave them to him. What's going on here? What did we do? This is why we need to go to court and have our day in court, and the burden will be on me that I was wronged. But there's no doubt if you were the jury, I would have no chance. You've already judged what we're doing. You've made a political statement, so you're not the person to judge. I'm not the person to judge. It's a judge. All of us who were wronged need to have a remedy to that wrong. And we're creating a chance to go to court for what happened to us and in a fashion to make sure it never happens again. This was coordinated with people in the Senate in power. This wasn't an attempt to enrich anybody. It was an attempt to deter what was wrong, in my view, never happen again. But I'm willing to work with my colleagues about the $500,000. I'm going to sue. I want to let you know. I'm going to sue Biden's DOJ and Jack Smith. I'm going to sue Verizon. It's going to be a hell of a lot more than $500,000. This is twice this has happened to me. I was hauled into court in Atlanta for no good reason, spent $1 million, and the crime is being friends of Trump, being supporters of Trump. This was an abuse of the law. This was weaponization of the law. It's just not me. I'm going to open up the ability to other people who had their phone records subpoenaed, I think unfairly, at least a chance to make that case. There's 197 subpoenas with 400 groups. I'm going to create a statute. Anybody that was in this situation could make a claim, they'll have to prove the claim. We're not going to shut this down. We're not going to act like it's okay when it's not. We're not going to say it's legal because you're a Democrat and I'm a Republican. We're going to have a judge determine whether or not it was legal. I don't think it was illegal at all because I know me, I've done nothing wrong here. I wasn't conspiring with anybody to overturn the election. I did my part to make sure 2020 ended the way it should have. And so to my majority leader, thank you for working with Senator Schumer, and to Senator Schumer, thanks for trying to work together to protect the body. We'll be working together to find a resolution that may be more accommodating, but the idea that I'm backing off and that I'm going to let this go, you can forget that. But it's just not me. It is not about me and what happened to me alone. It's about how this happened to any of us. And it should never happen to any of us again. You've got to have a reason to do what they did that I can't fathom. This is a separate branch of government. Do you really want the Department of Justice coming after United States senators' phone records when there's no warrant involved, when there's no alleged crime involved? You're just fishing around to see who we talked to and what we're talking about? That scares me. It offends me, and I'm going to do something about it. So I object. I think this provision can be changed in a way to be more acceptable to people, but we need to open up the courts to people like me and others that have our rights violated, I believe, but it'd be up to the judge. And what we're trying to do is remedy a wrong. Now, I think that's why Senator Schumer and the committees of jurisdiction understood why we need to create an avenue. It's me today, it could be you tomorrow. And if you're at home, if they can do this to the United States Senator, what could they do to you? Maybe somebody in the Department of Justice doesn't like your post, doesn't like your political activity, and they want to shut you down. They want to find out who you've been talking to. This is scary stuff. So to Senator Thune, I look forward to working with my colleagues on the other side to find a way to make this section more acceptable, but I am not backing off. I am not going to accept repeal because we need a way forward. To my friends in the House, you need to start worrying about your members. You had the former speaker. You two members I know of had their phone records spied upon. So we've got our work to do to clean this mess up in a way to provide remedies to those who may have been harmed, but not to sweep it under the rug. Arctic frost will not be swept under the rug. I will not go quietly. I will keep pushing back on behalf of myself and others in like situation. So with the majority leader, I think you have a proposal here.
The objection is heard.
Mr. President.
I recognize the Republican
Yeah, and let
leader.
me just reiterate what the senator from South Carolina just said, and that is that this measure that we passed does indeed give important protections to members. And I think it's an important defense of separation of powers. It protects Democrats and it protects Republicans alike from a weaponized Department of Justice that is pursuing political enemies. The measure was never meant to enrich senators. It's always been true under our rules that members wouldn't keep damages they recover under this measure. And so I would hope that we can work together to pass a resolution to reflect what's always been true and what I've been saying all along, and that is that this measure is about accountability and not profit. And so, Mr. President, I have a unanimous consent request. I would ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the consideration of this resolution, the one at the desk. Further, that the resolution be agreed to and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate. And Mr. President, what this would simply do is it would preserve the important elements of this, which I think are critical to the protection of the Article I branch of the government constitutionally, and but address the question that has been raised about personal enrichment, which I have said, again, is not the case here. This would clarify that any damages awarded under this law would be forfeited to the United States Treasury. So no individual senator could benefit. Now that's the case. That was the case before, but this would clarify that. And it seems to me, at least, if you want to address the concern that's been raised by the senator from New Mexico about senators trying to get hundreds of thousands of dollars out of the Justice Department or the federal government, the taxpayers, this would address that by simply saying that anything that is awarded, settlement that's awarded under this statute, would be forfeited to the United States Treasury. But it would preserve the important protections that are in place under the statute when it comes to members' personal information. I happen to think, and that was what animated this, that individual senators, members of the Article I branch of our government, should not be subject to a weaponized Department of Justice or prosecutors who go around the law. And so this strengthens the law and ensures that in the future that doesn't happen. And so it's in my view, again, something that protects this institution, something that protects individual senators, and the unanimous consent request that I'm offering here would clarify in the form of a resolution that would apply to the Senate. And by the way, this only applied to the Senate. Now, frankly, there's a good argument that if I'm a member of the House of Representatives, I would want the same protections that are included here. But that wasn't the case. When we drafted this, it was in response to a statute that covered the Senate only. So this specifically applies to senators, and this resolution that I'm offering here and asking unanimous consent for would clarify, make crystal clear, that any damages awarded as a result of claims brought under this statute would be forfeited to the United States Treasury and not be allowed for an individual member to take advantage of. So just to be clear, no personal enrichment, accountability, and I think protection for the Article I branch of our government, which in my view, based on what we saw and what we're seeing as the facts continue to come in into the Arctic frost investigation, there was clearly a violation of the law, and a law that needs to be strengthened and clarified so those protections are in place for future members of the United States Senate. And again, I would argue someday probably members of the House are going to want that same protection. So that is my request, Mr. President, that the resolution be agreed to, the resolution at the desk that makes that clear, and the motion to reconsider be considered made, laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Is there objection?
Reserving the right to object.
Recognize the senator from New Mexico.
The remedy to a statutory change that is in statute is not a resolution. It's to fix the statute. And I think we should work with our colleagues in the House to address the underlying issue of protecting members without the outrageous damage provisions that were retroactively put into this statute. So I object.
The objection is heard.
And I would defer to my colleague from Michigan with my time.
I recognize the senator from Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, Mr. President, I am just so disappointed that the UC request from my colleague from New Mexico was objected to by Republicans here on the floor of the Senate. The fact that we're here trying to fix a terrible wrong that occurred last week is simply outrageous. While Senate Democrats were fighting to lower health care costs and trying to provide some financial relief for families who are seeing their costs skyrocket across the board, the Senate Republicans snuck in, and this is literally true, they snuck in the dark of night, a provision at the last minute that would allow them to basically line their pockets. This provision would allow a very select group of Republican senators, let's be clear, this is to seek at least $500,000. It could go into the millions of dollars.
Senator, if I remind senators of Rule 19, paragraph 2 provides that no senator in debate shall directly or indirectly, by any form or words, impute to another senator or other senators any conduct or motive unworthy of being a senator.
Very good. Well, this is what happened. And let's be clear, what the law does is that a group of folks can get over $500,000 for records that were obtained. They were obtained as part of a legitimate criminal investigation. It's unconscionable that at a time when families across the country are feeling the squeeze and struggling to make ends meet, that such a self-serving, retroactive provision was included in legislation to fund the government. Let's be clear, no citizen of the United States gets this. No House member gets this. This is just about senators. It has all the appearances, certainly, of a cash grab. And it's the American taxpayers who are going to have to foot this bill. Let's be clear. No senator should get special treatment or a special payday for legally obtained records. And I want to stress that part. These records were obtained through a standard legal process as part of a legitimate criminal investigation related to January 6th, involving authorized subpoenas of those senators' potential involvement. I've heard this described as partisan political targeting. But unlike the bogus investigations President Trump has ordered into his political enemies, this whole situation arose from President Trump's own efforts to overturn a free and fair presidential election. During the Department of Justice's investigation into this crime, the special counsel petitioned the court for a subpoena for those records, and the court approved it. Mr. President, you know that is the law. That is the process. You go get a subpoena, you have to go before a court. You have to present evidence, and the court looks at that evidence and then makes a decision, and the court approved it. Completely legal. Because it was relevant to their investigation of the president's attempt to overturn election results and to stay in power illegally. We can't forget that. Can't whitewash that. And we cannot let attempts to spin this into some sort of partisan or targeting against certain individuals. First off, it sets a very dangerous precedent that could chill any effort to conduct legitimate investigations of criminal wrongdoing by members of this body or anywhere else down the line. And we certainly should not put the American people in the position of being basically a slush fund for a few individuals interested in making a whole lot of money and having the taxpayers footing the bill. Now, I want to give my colleagues the benefit of the doubt about how this provision was put into the bill. And today they had a chance to do the right thing. They had a chance to repeal it and say, yeah, this is bad. That's the way that we ensure that no senator gets special treatment. And we can get back to doing the work to better serve our constituents. So I hope we can fix this wrong. Our friends across the Capitol here in the House, they voted unanimously. Every Republican, every member of the Democratic caucus, we came together. You want to see bipartisanship in Washington? Everybody says, gosh, I wish this body could come together in a bipartisan way. We saw it in the House today. They said this provision is terrible. They said it is outrageous. They said it was a cash grab.
All right, everyone. Colin Mayfield here on WCNC Plus. Going to take a quick 2-minute break. We've got a live interview coming up in the next 15 minutes. We'll talk to you in 2 minutes. And we're back here inside the Impact Studio. We're going to get an update as we are closer to the end of the week now. Friday Junior, Majestic Storm has our weather impact forecast.
Well, good Thursday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm, and we have another very nice day today. You can see Dallas out there, generally a good mix of sun and clouds across much of the state of North and even South Carolina. Now, today you're going to notice increasing cloud coverage as we progress more into the afternoon and even into the evening. However, our temperatures, they'll still rise into the lower end of the 70s. Now, it's not going to be quite as warm as yesterday. Yesterday, we broke our daily high record, nearing almost 80 degrees. And then we have some rain showers moving in overnight tonight and into early Friday morning. Scattered rain. Not everyone will see it, but I do think many folks will. Friday's going to be a mainly cloudy day, and it's not going to be rain all throughout your Friday. So if you have any plans, it's mainly early in the morning and then late Friday night. This weekend, not too bad. Comfortable temperatures, small rain chances. Look at this, though. Yesterday, we did break that daily high record. We topped off at 79 degrees, and today 72, still about 10 degrees above where we should be for this time of the year, but definitely not quite as warm as where we were yesterday. Notice throughout the day we started out with beautiful clear sunny skies. Now as we're into the afternoon, a nice mix of sun and clouds, and then by late day you'll have mainly cloudy conditions. Now if you're in the mountains, you're going to get the rain a little sooner rather than later, and you'll have much more cloud coverage move in quicker as well. 64 degrees for your high today in Boone, 60 degrees in Blowing Rock. Once we're heading towards the foothills, very mild conditions, partly cloudy skies, 68 there in Lenoir, and then right around the greater Charlotte metro area, plan for low 70s from Charlotte to Concord, even out there towards Shelby. And then just to the south of that, 70 degrees in Lancaster, 69 for Chesterfield. So not a lot of complaints when it comes to the forecast today. We broke that daily high record yesterday, and we have another great opportunity to do that in the coming days as well, especially on Saturday. We're forecasting a high of 78 degrees on Saturday. So hopefully you have some outdoor plans. Our last daily high record for that day was 76 degrees set back in 2011. Rain chances, they are going to start to increase slowly but surely again tonight and into Friday, and then again Friday night and into early Saturday morning. Rain chances go down Sunday and into Monday, and then leading into Thanksgiving week. We do have some rain chances, but at this point, none of it seems to be a washout. Here's our satellite and radar. We're mainly watching the system that's off to the west of us. It's taken its time, but that's where those clouds will be coming from, and that's where those rain showers will also be coming from once they actually reach us. So let's time this out. Here's our futurecast, 9 o'clock tonight. You can see mainly up in the mountain counties first, heading into Friday morning. There's 5 o'clock in the morning, some light to moderate rain, possibly for that early morning commute. Friday as a whole, though, remember this is a cloudy day and we'll start out dry, and then here we go on Friday evening. Here's about 5 o'clock. Could even see a few isolated thunderstorms, even brief heavy downpours. But as far as our temperatures go, it seems like we're going to stay well above average, taking us straight into Thanksgiving. But let me just say, enjoy it while we have it, because we're also starting to see some trends that leading into the first week of December, we're going to have a significant drop off. I mean, temperatures will plummet with daytime highs only into the 40s. Here's that Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast. 70s for the next 3 days, small rain chances here and there, mild throughout the weekend, and then some changes coming really after Thanksgiving.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick 2-minute break and then speak to a Charlotte resident who captured some of the operations that we've seen with CBP here in Charlotte. Speak to her about what she captured and kind of go through those moments with her. We'll see you back in 2 minutes. And we are back here on WCNC Plus. There's been multiple sources across social media, even from NBC News, that DHS officials have said that apparently operations by CBP will be ending. But in fact, within the last 30 minutes, apparently DHS sending out that arrests will continue, and this is going to continue for quite some time. There's no date on this, and in fact, from DHS themselves, in a written release saying that they will be here for some time. The operation is not over, and it is not ending anytime soon. That's from DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin. So they have arrested in Charlotte around what they say around 370 illegal aliens. That's a straight quote from them in the past 5 days. So they're sending out more information. And as I said, again, we're getting conflicting reports from even local leaders here in Charlotte that they are saying that this may come to an end. But we are trying to verify independently from these sources. And as I said, we just got this from DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin. So we'll continue to monitor the situation and where the latest stands. We did want to bring on our interviewee, Lara, who is here, Lara Bucci. Lara, thank you so much for your time. Lara's here because, Lara, you captured some of these operations yourself firsthand. So first, I'll just kind of ask you, take us back to what day it was, and really what happened. And we'll play the video in a second, but if you kind of just will set the scene for us of the environment of that day.
Absolutely. It was actually just yesterday morning, and we were alerted that there was a raid happening at the Domino's on Sharon Amity. So we drove over there. As soon as we got there, it wasn't actually a raid on the Domino's. It was just happening in front of it.
Okay.
It was just a bystander was walking, and they just pulled her over, took her behind the building so that no one would see what was going on. So we drove behind the building to see if anyone was detained, and she looked about 17, 18 maybe years old, very young. She looked terrified. There were probably 10 masked men surrounding her, 6 vehicles. It just seems so overwhelming for such an innocent person to have that much happening to her all at once. And we got out of our cars and we started to approach. They started yelling at us to not approach because it's illegal for us to approach them during a detainment.
Okay.
We backed up, but we were filming because our main priority is to find out who the person is so that we can find them in the system and get them legal action. Unfortunately, she was so terrified she wouldn't speak and give us her name. So they put her in the vehicle, and then 6 vehicles drove off with her. We don't know where I don't specifically know where they took her.
Right.
They're just, the facilities seem like they're being hidden.
Yeah.
But I was able to relay that information to one of the attorneys, and I'm hoping that by now they've found her.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I ask, so this young woman, she was just walking indiscriminately, you said?
That is what the eyewitness told us
before
when we
you got there. Okay.
Yeah.
So can I ask, have you formed like a citizen group, a watch group? Do you guys call yourselves anything, or was this just something that happened spur of the moment?
No way. It is kind of a watch group. I guess that's a perfect way to describe it.
Okay.
It was, I found out through a friend of a friend, and she sent the link. At a church in Oakhurst was hosting people to understand what's going on and how we can help more people. And so I will say the church was packed. It was amazing to see how many people care so much to be a part of a group that wants to help these innocent, in our eyes, they're innocent until proven guilty. So it is a group of people who are looking to make sure that those people know their rights.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this yesterday on this show, actually 24 hours ago, about due process, and a lot of these operations don't seem to be even giving folks their memoranda rights. I mean, that's what even normal officers do. And there have been reports. I have a friend who does operations within CMPD, and he was kind of saying that it's been hard to even work with these federal agents in some respects. So I find this mind-blowing, in and of the fact that it is happening in our community, right, to people that we know and love. And so it is shocking, right, especially when it is happening in the moment. I can only imagine your hands, and your adrenaline was racing. Was there anything, like, did you feel threatened at all? Because in some of these instances, people have been detained for just recording what you were doing. I mean, did you have a second thought about that at all?
I didn't have a second thought about it. Of course, my heart was racing.
Yeah.
I saw the videos of the 2 U.S. citizens whose windows were smashed and arrested.
Right.
I guess I just thought, this is a risk I'm willing to take right now. The only thing that scared me was when I was filming, one of the agents asked me what my citizenship was, and I looked around, and I was really the only 10 person around, and they only asked me, and I said I'm a U.S. citizen, and thankfully I do carry my passport around, which I probably shouldn't because I'll lose it, but but I'm glad I had it just in case.
Well, and I I made the same comment yesterday. I've been riding with my passport for years. I mean, honestly, since COVID-19, because we had to travel some type of certificate right at that time to be able to travel and work. But again, it's really shocking to think that we live in America that we have to carry our passport on us, because other Americans would feel like that's kind of ridiculous, right? And others feel like that's what we should be doing. So, it is what it is. But I appreciate you kind of talking through, going through this whole process in terms of finding these people. How did you guys, and it sounds like it's not just you, so do you have, you don't have to tell us who this person is if you don't want to, but it sounds like a group of you. I mean, are you guys looking for this type of operation? Do you guys call one another when something is spotted? How does that work?
Yeah, it's mainly through messaging, through different apps, and saying like, hey, we spotted them at this location, and we just get in our cars and drive to see where they are. And I think it's unfortunate that I had to spend half my day yesterday doing that, but that's the reality of what we're living in, and I hope more people stand up for what's right and join us. Yeah.
Well, there's no fact that it's impacting the local economy, whether it's the construction industry, whether it's local restaurants. I mean, I've seen so many parking lots that would be, during lunchtime, would be packed with people. And as I've said continuously over the last couple of days, and I'll continue to say, the holiday season is right around the corner. A lot of these restaurant owners make their money, so much of it during the year, during this time.
Absolutely.
So it's having ripple effects in our community. Not only these people are sons and brothers and fathers and mothers. And again, where is due process? I guess a lot of Americans are asking at this moment. So appreciate you recording these type of moments. I mean, that's what the First Amendment is for. That's in many situations, of course, if you're not impeding the actual arrest, it is legal for folks to videotape what they're seeing, right? Even our governor has come out and said to people, a way that you can, resist in this type of way is to capture what is going on. So appreciate you coming on. Any last thoughts that you wanted to kind of let us know or talk about the entire altercation?
Yeah, I guess someone had asked me, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And what is the end game? And really, do I think I'm going to save someone from being detained? I don't know. I hope, but the likelihood is no.
Right.
But I want to bring awareness. I think people really do believe that they're only going after criminals, and that's not true. The first incident we witnessed yesterday was at a construction site. These men are hard-working people, citizens, whether they're U.S. citizens or not. They're not criminals. They were just on the job site fixing our public roads and sidewalks, and that's where they approached them. And one of the gentlemen was on the machine digging, and he's approached by masked men. He's probably terrified. He has no idea what's going on.
Right.
And we told him, just keep working, just keep working.
Right.
And so I hope people understand that this is not about finding criminals. There's something more to it, and we need to understand what that is so that we can better educate ourselves and each other.
Yeah, I mean, again, as the governor pointed out in his own words, it seems like just regular individuals are being swept up in this.
Yes.
And so, as I said, 370 plus arrests of what they're saying are illegal individuals. So again, it's tough to verify some of that information in some respects when you can't really see some of the faces of the people that are arresting these individuals. So, transparency is something that I think a lot of folks are wondering where that will come in. But again, I appreciate your time for coming in today and just for giving us perspective on what you saw. Right, this wasn't an opinion; it was actually kind of what happened in your own words. So we appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, of course. Laird, thank you. Have a great rest of your week. Folks, we did want to update you on a CMS email that we just got. And in fact, just this morning, there was a student taken into custody at a CMS bus stop. Apparently, this student brought a weapon. A witness notified law enforcement that they responded to this. A juvenile suspect was then taken into custody. That weapon was confiscated. There's no ongoing threat to students or staff. And I'm not seeing if this weapon was loaded or unloaded. I'm not exactly sure about that morsel of information, but we'll get that to you when we get that figured out. We're going to take a 2-minute break and come back after this. And we're back, guys. We're going to take you straight to the White House right now. Caroline Levitt is giving us an update on all things the White House and everything else we need to know.
So I will begin my remarks. She's going to speak, and then we'll take some questions. She'll take questions, and I'll take questions from you as well. First off, yesterday, First Lady Melania Trump and Second Lady Usha Vance traveled to Marine Corps Air Station New River and Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, where they spent the day meeting with students, educators, military families, and United States Marines. Both the First Lady and Second Lady were grateful for the warm welcome and remain deeply committed to supporting military families and the communities that serve our great nation. May God bless all of them. In economic news, the September jobs report showed the American economy remains strong, with 119,000 new jobs added, more than double expectations. These gains came after the summer passage of President Trump's historic tax cuts and multiple big trade deals with countries around the world. In particular, construction jobs surged by 19,000 in September, the largest monthly gain in a year. Nearly all of this solid monthly job growth came from the private sector and went to Americans rather than foreign-born workers, the opposite of what we saw under the previous administration. Inflation also remains under control, and wages are up by 3.8% over the year for American workers because of President Trump's pro-growth policies. In fact, real wages are on pace to increase roughly $1,200 for the average worker this year under President Trump. This is a complete reversal of the failed Biden era, when we saw inflation skyrocket to 9%, causing private sector workers to see their wages decline by approximately $3,000. We know that Americans are still hurting from the 4-decade high inflation caused by Joe Biden and the Democrats, but President Trump is making significant progress to fix this, and he will not stop working until he solves it. As the president recently stated, he is never satisfied. justified. For example, President Trump's policies are working to make Americans' Thanksgiving more affordable this year, from their commute to the dinner table. Nearly 100 million Americans are expected to drive next week to spend time with loved ones for the holiday. And thanks to President Trump's drill baby drill agenda, the national average price of a gallon of gas on Thanksgiving Day is projected to be at the cheapest price since the COVID pandemic in 2021. President Trump is bringing down gas prices and providing significant savings to American families at the pump. And again, we expect those prices to continue to decline. According to the American Farm Bureau Federation's annual survey, cooking Thanksgiving dinner will also cost less this year than it did last year and is down about 5% overall. The average price for a staple of the meal, a 16-pound frozen turkey, is down more than 16% from last year, which will provide critical savings for families and their budgets. President Trump's entire economic agenda is aimed at putting more money back into the pockets of hardworking Americans. That's why he signed the largest middle tax cuts in history into law, from no tax on overtime, no tax on tips, to no tax on Social Security. And according to a new study from Piper Sandler, which is out this week, tax filers can expect an extra $1,000 bump to their tax refund next year, and what could be a record-breaking tax refund season. So there is more good news to come. We know these refunds will make a huge difference for Americans to help pay down their bills and use towards life's expenses. In other news this week, President Trump took a significant step toward delivering on a core campaign promise to finally close the Department of Education. To shrink the bloated federal bureaucracy, the Department of Education just entered into new interagency agreements with 4 agencies: the Departments of Labor, Interior, Health and Human Services, and State. These agencies will now ensure the delivery of legally required programs while also refocusing them to better serve students. This common sense action brings the Trump administration much closer to finally returning education where it belongs, at the state and local level, not in Washington, D.C. The Democrats' reckless 43-day government shutdown did manage to do one valuable thing. It proved that America does not need a federal Department of Education. During the longest shutdown in history, the Department of Education furloughed 90% of its staff, and America's education system was not impacted whatsoever. Schools stayed fully open across the country. Students attended class and received normal in-person instruction, and our wonderful teachers received their paychecks uninterrupted. The Democrats' government shutdown made it painfully obvious that American families do not need the Department of Education. Since its creation in 1979 during the Carter administration, the Department of Ed has spent over $3 trillion taxpayer dollars without improving student achievement, despite peer pupil spending having increased by more than 245% since the 1970s. Math and reading scores are down in public schools. In fact, the most recent Nation's Report Card from 2024 showed that 13-year-olds' math scores are the lowest they've been in decades, and their reading scores are the lowest since testing began more than 30 years ago. It's clear that throwing more money at a broken system does not work, and that's why President Trump appointed the amazing leader behind me, our Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, who is making these monumental changes at the direction of the President. We're very grateful to have you here today to talk about these changes and then take some questions. Hopefully folks in this room will have some questions on the very important topic of education. So please, Mrs. Secretary.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Caroline. It's really a pleasure to be here with you today, and thank all of you for being here as well. My purpose here is to speak directly to the American families, not just you, but to the American families, about the work this administration is doing in education to reverse our national decline with a hard reset of our educational system. That reset was a top campaign promise from President Trump to send education back to the states and end Washington's micromanagement of education once and for all. This week we took the most decisive steps thus far to make good on this promise to you. We have linked 6 groundbreaking partnerships with other federal agencies to delegate education department programs that are redundant with existing programs at Labor, State, Interior, and HHS. These interagency agreements to cut our own bureaucratic bloat are a key step in our efforts to shift educational authority from Washington, D.C. to your state education agency, your local superintendent, your local school board, entities that are accountable to you, and we encourage parents to always be involved. Cutting federal bureaucracy is never a popular move among D.C. insiders. A chorus of anti-Trump voices have come out of the woodwork to complain that we are defunding education, harming students, or acting without a plan. This could not be further from the truth. The majority of Americans across the country handed to President Trump the popular vote precisely because they have seen the brokenness of a top-down education system run by the federal government. They're painfully aware that only 3 out of 10 students can read proficiently at their grade level. They know that college students are collectively $1.7 trillion in debt, and less than half of college graduates get a job that actually uses the degree which they studied so hard to get. They see more teachers than ever before leaving the profession due to burnout, overregulation, and lack of autonomy in the classroom. Anti-Trump voices are stirring up fear that returning education to the states is a draconian action. When Americans hear that we are shutting down the department, but given no other details, 51% oppose it. But when those same Americans are informed of our plans to preserve important elements of our work in other federal agencies and to maintain the K-12 funding that is distributed to the states, that number flips to an even greater majority at 56%. And they support returning education to the states and breaking up the bureaucracy. That's because the Department of Education is a pass-through entity. It doesn't educate a single student. The money it sends to states for education can be sent directly without waste. The Democrats' government shutdown proved that without a doubt, and I'll reiterate what you said, that the Department of Education was not necessary during the shutdown. Now, this is what I've seen already on my 50-state tour that I've embarked on. Educators are innovating in their schools. States are customizing their budgets and standards, and post-secondary institutions are planning for the economy of the future. But we're not leading them. They are informing us. That's why our final mission as a department is to fully empower states to carry the torch of our educational renaissance. Education is local. It should be overseen locally by those who best know local needs. We're not ending federal support for education. We are ending federal micromanagement and paving the way for education renewal through state reforms like school choice, the science of reading, and restoring the right priorities in higher education. President Trump promised to send education back to the states, and we're keeping that promise. America's next generation will look back on the work we've carried out, thankful for an education system that prioritizes students over bureaucracy. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Secretary, and we'll take some questions for the Secretary if you have them. Elizabeth, why don't you start?
Thank you for joining us. You announced the partnership to move some functions of the Education Department to other agencies. Are you talking to members of Congress about codifying this so that it lasts beyond the administration?
Yes, we started our conversation, and thanks very much for asking that, because there have been some reports that Congress is in the dark on this. That's clearly not true. We've been talking to, I've talked to dozens of members of Congress to explain to them exactly what we're doing, to bring them up to speed, and to say to them, look, when we have completed some of these transfers that are working incredibly well, then we will be looking to Congress to codify those, make them permanent.
Brian.
Thank you. Secretary McMahon, what is the update on the negotiations with Harvard? I know the President has publicly pointed to you as somebody who's worked on that. I think you've talked about that at length, but I'd like to understand, where are things with those negotiations with Harvard this time?
They're ongoing negotiations, and I feel very comfortable that we are getting close to having those negotiations finalized. It's been open door conversation all along.
Deanna?
Hello, Mrs. Secretary. The President recently posted about establishing a federal standard for AI. Do you know if the administration has a view on the use of AI for students in schools? And Caroline, do you know if the President personally uses AI?
I don't think so.
You can handle
I've
that
never
one.
witnessed it, so I can't attest to that.
Well, I do think AI is going to need guardrails, but I have witnessed AI firsthand. I was at the Alpha School in Austin, Texas, and the first 2 hours of every day in that school, students are learning through AI. They have their headsets on, they're in front of their screens, and the AI is really acting as like an individual tutor for those students, allowing those students that can progress faster to do that. Those who need a little catch-up, it refeeds information to them, and so after those 2 hours of learning, the basics of what they're doing in their curriculum that day, then they spend the rest of the day, I mean, they have good recess and all of that time, but then they spend the rest of the day in what are called life skills, and they're actually using the information that they've learned this morning. So I've seen some AI in action that is really proving quite beneficial.
Michael.
Thank you, Caroline. Secretary McMahon, as the Education Department continues to pare down, can you talk about taxpayer services like charter school grants and how the department will continue to assist kids with special needs?
Well, we are going to make sure that there's no interruption in getting that grant money out the door. I mean, that money is it comes from Congress, it's appropriated by Congress, and we legally are obligated to do that. And the transitions we're starting to make, our first programs that went over to the Department of Labor, that was a few weeks ago. We actually signed the first interagency agreement, which we accomplished under the authority of the Economy Act. We transferred grants for WIOA and for the Perkins Act. And the really good news is that the Department of Labor has a much more sophisticated system, technology system and grant fulfilling system than the Department of Education does. As a matter of fact, our executive manager that went over with that group over to Labor said he would compare what the labor system is to education's like held together by bubble gum that is not connected to any other part. So we were able to get those grants out the door more smoothly, and states have actually better access for those systems than they do at the Department of Education. So that's a real bonus.
Take a couple more. Carrie, go ahead.
As far as the diversity, equity, and inclusion new regulations that came out from the administrations, a lot of schools, whether high school or even higher education is concerned, some of them are defying these new administration policies, even apparently according to a new report.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
As far as there's been a new report from the administration saying that half of medical schools are defying the administration when it comes to DEI policies. What type of action will the administration take for these schools that are defying the new DEI policies?
Well, certainly the President has been very clear, and the Department of Education has taken measures to make sure that as schools are developing, their policies, or if they have open DEI offices, they're closed, or DEI regulations and rules are stripped, from their programs, and so that will continue.
Great. We'll take one more. Go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. Secretary McMahon, my question is, since you said 3 out of 10 students are literate with regard to their reading capacity, would now the states help to improve those numbers since you have gone back to the states?
Well, what we are finding, that the states that are making great progress, it's through their own innovation. It's not coming from the Department of Education. I think the Department of Education is really misunderstood about what our function is. We don't teach one student. We have nothing to do with the curriculum that are in any states. We are a pass-through pathway from money that's appropriated by Congress to get to the states. But what we have seen in those states that have taken that initiative and they are embracing the science of reading and returning that into their school programs. Louisiana has done it. Mississippi, they call it the Mississippi Miracle, because they were like, I think, bottom or next to last in reading proficiency in Mississippi, and now they're like middle of the pack, which has been a really big jump. Florida has, Iowa has, Tennessee. So, but these are innovations that are done at the state level. This is not anything we're dictating, and that's why I'm saying returning education to the states, where they really are already leading in their education endeavors, and 90% of their budget they provide. The federal government only provides 8 to 10% of the budget for education, so let's make sure that that grant money that's coming from the federal government is getting in their hands as efficiently as possible and getting to students. We don't want teachers having to spend their time and money in regulatory compliance. There was There was one superintendent chief who said to me that they had done some calculation in their state, and that for every dollar that went into the classroom in a grant, 47 cents was spent in regulatory compliance. So let's get the money into the hands of our students and our teachers. Let's raise the level of education. The other thing I'll do, and I'll quickly wrap up for you, is this 50-state tour that I have embarked on. We've done about 14 states. We've shut down a little bit during the shutdown. But what I am doing is visiting different kinds of schools, grammar schools, middle schools, high schools, micro schools, private schools, charter schools, the whole gambit. And in the end, my goal will be, as we step away and fully deliver education back to the states, is to provide them with a best practices toolkit of all of the things that I have seen around the country to say, hey, this is working. Check with these superintendents, check with these governors. And you know what I found a little bit is governors are a little competitive, so it's kind of nice to give some of these best practices out there. It'll work because it's already working. If we leave it with the people who are closest to the students, the president believes, as do I, the best education is that's closest to the child, and parents' involvement is critical to the success.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much. I appreciate your coming
All right.
today. Thanks for your great work. And
Thank
she's
you all very much.
a busy lady, so we'll let her
Come
get
on.
back to work. All right. Thank you again. Well, let's get to it. You guys were so calm with her. I wish you were that calm with me. We'll kick off with our new media seat, as always. Javier, why don't you start us off, and then we'll get to the rest of the room. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Javier Negre. I'm from Spain. I'm the owner of the biggest media platform in Hispanic politics, with brands like La Derecha Diario, Ida TV, or UH Plus, or Vicegratin in Spanish. And I'm happy to be here. Thanks for supporting the new media. Also in the Hispanic community, we try to fight against media like Telemundo, Univision, CNN, or NBC News that are spreading fake news and attacking the ICE operations. We will premiere this Sunday the Real America's Voice, the Rainy Show, the first Hispanic show against communism and woke culture that is promoted by people like George Soros to bring communism all over the world, like happened in New York. I have two questions for you, if you don't mind. In Mexico, the young people is protesting against President Sheinbaum. They think she's doing nothing against the cartels. Sheinbaum used the police to attack them, young people, kids, girls, and she's attacking journalists like me in a country where 150 journalists have been killed in the past years. The USA legacy media is attacking President Trump for his comments about the fake news media, while they are not publishing anything about the murders of journalists in Mexico. Why do you think they stay silent about the murders of journalists in Mexico and the attacks to businessmen like Ricardo Salinas? And my second question is, Trump said he has a plan for the narco state of Venezuela. Does he have a plan for Mexico where, according to Stephen Miller, the cartels are controlling governments and territories?
Sure. Well, thank you, Javier, for the question, and thank you again for being here. We're proud to have new media voices in the briefing room. As for President Sheinbaum and the president's relationship with Mexico, I will tell you that we have seen historic strides from President Sheinbaum and her administration in Mexico when it comes to cracking down on the cartels. They have been incredibly cooperative with the president's efforts at our southern border to crack down on illegal immigration and also the illegal trafficking of drugs at the southern border. Now the president is very interested in taking additional measures against the drug cartels. He's been very clear about that. He's spoken about it, and this is a promise that he made to the American public. And so his national security team is discussing these options all of the time. And on the campaign trail, the president promised to take on the cartels. He has taken unprecedented action to do so, and he has left additional options at his disposal on the table. So those are only decisions that the president can make. Thank you.
What about the silence of the legacy media about the murders of journalists in Mexico? 150 journalists have been killed in the past years.
Yeah, well, it's certainly something I wish the media would report on more, and it's something that this administration absolutely condemns. I can't speak for the media, but I can speak for the president. That's not something he wants to see. Thank you. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline.